Give up on Robert already. He's too good for you." My sister Eva, to whom I had donated my organs, wrapped her arm around my husband Robert and said that it hasn't been long since I became a donor for Eva, who had been sick. That day, too, I had just returned from my regular checkup at the hospital, and there I was, witnessing Eva and Robert's affair. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. With a single sentence from Eva, the harsh reality hit me. Next to her, Robert was laughing like it didn't matter at all, without even a hint of guilt. He said he preferred younger and prettier Eva over me. In that moment, I regretted everything. I regretted risking my health to save Eva, who had always looked down on me, and I regretted that I had ever loved and married a fool like Robert. Even though Eva had betrayed me, my parents didn't seem to care. In fact, they just said, "You're the eldest daughter, so you need to endure it." It's always been like that. Since I was a child, I was constantly told to endure because I was the eldest. But even when my husband was taken away, I was supposed to endure it just because it was my sister. That's absolutely wrong. This isn't family. I couldn't take it anymore. We're not family. We're strangers. And I won't go easy on you anymore. My name is Harper. I'm turning 30 this year. If someone asked me when I was the happiest in my 30 years of life, I would confidently say it's now. Because until I went to college, I lived a life filled with nothing but endurance. When I was born, Dad and Mom were both 23 years old. If it weren't for you, we could have waited longer to get married. That was Mom's favorite thing to say to me. Dad wasn't as direct, but I could tell from the way he kept his distance that he didn't want to be a parent. From an early age, Mom drilled into me that chores came before anything else, before play, before school. And it wasn't just simple things like wiping dishes or folding laundry like other kids did. By the time I was 6, I was washing dishes, doing laundry, and cleaning the house, all on my own, even doing it for my parents. If I didn't, I'd get severely scolded by both Dad and Mom. So I was desperate to meet their expectations. I never even thought to question why I had to prioritize housework above everything else. Then when I entered elementary school, my sister Eva was born, 6 years younger than me. Suddenly, in addition to chores, I was also tasked with taking care of Eva. And when I started middle school, my brother John was born, 12 years younger than me. By this time, I had gotten used to the chores, and my cooking skills had significantly improved. But taking care of John added to my responsibilities, leaving me even less time for my studies. But with both of my parents always coming home late, I had no choice but to take care of everything. Dad and Mom were busy with work, so I kept telling myself it couldn't be helped. But even then, there was one thing I just couldn't accept. It was the blatant favoritism my parents showed. They adored Eva, who was cute and charming, and let her do whatever she wanted. Eva, who was showered with love from our parents, started learning the piano when she became an elementary school student. On days when she didn't have piano practice, she would always spend her time playing with her friends. To Eva, I was nothing more than a housekeeper. Eva clearly looked down on me and would always say things like, "My clothes are dirty, so wash them for me. I'm going out now, so make sure the room is cleaned by the time I get back. The food today doesn't taste good. Make something I like." She was completely free to say whatever she wanted. Our parents, as if her attitude was completely normal, didn't seem to care. It was around that time when John was born, and our parents suddenly became completely absorbed in raising him. It seemed like the birth of their son was something they had long been waiting for. Even though Mom went back to work right after giving birth to John, both of them started coming home earlier. enjoying the time they spent together raising their son. They hadn't changed their jobs, nor had their work changed in any significant way. It was simply that their feelings toward family life had shifted. Watching my parents for the first time truly act like parents filled my high school heart with an indescribable sense of frustration. I had never once been allowed to take lessons or play with friends, always being forced to do housework and look after Eva. I really wanted to learn the piano too, and I wanted to spend more time with my friends. But since looking back at the past wouldn't change anything, I decided to attend a state university far from home and distance myself from my family. However, when I brought up the idea of going to college, both of my parents strongly opposed it. Without even asking which university I was considering, they bluntly told me they didn't have money to pay for my tuition. Instead, they told me to hurry up and get a job. The reason was that Eva had suddenly decided she wanted to take the entrance exam for a private middle school. According to Eva, the uniforms at that school were really cute. I'm sure that uniform would totally suit me. My grades are good enough. Please, Dad, Mom, I'll study hard. With Eva's request, our parents immediately accepted the idea of her taking the entrance exam. Meanwhile, I was told to get a job to help with the family's finances. I couldn't stand the unfairness anymore. By that point, I had also started to realize that my parents weren't just coming home late because of work, but because they were caught up in gambling. They were relying on me because their salaries couldn't cover everything. Years of prioritizing Eva over me had reached a breaking point, and I exploded. I've had enough. For the first time, I raised my voice. My parents and Eva were stunned, completely taken aback by my anger. Am I just a tool for this family? Why'd I have to change my future plans just for Eva? I have things I want to do too. I've always been holding back, but not anymore. From now on, I'm going to live my life the way I want. Don't expect anything from me anymore. And don't rely on me either. I told my parents that, but at the time, I hadn't really thought about what I was going to do next. So I turned to my high school homeroom teacher for advice. The teacher was very dedicated and, after hearing the basics of my family situation, listened closely and gave me various tips on how I could pursue my education. Thanks to their guidance, I was able to apply for a scholarship, allowing me to attend college without any financial support from my parents. The university had dormitories, so I also managed to achieve my long-awaited goal of living apart from my family. Finally, I was able to start. After graduating from college, I got a job at my first choice company. A few years later, I met Robert through work, and we started dating and eventually got married. Moving away from my family made it seem like everything was going smoothly. Since I had become independent, contact with my family had completely ceased, so I explained the situation to Robert and only informed them of our marriage by postcard. We took wedding photos, but didn't have a ceremony. I had explained this to my parents-in-law beforehand, and they were understanding. My parents-in-law are kind and thoughtful people, who said, as long as our son and Harper are happy and building a good life together, that's all we need. They welcomed me warmly. Even after our marriage, they continued to show concern for us, and I maintained a good relationship with them. A few years passed peacefully. Then suddenly, my mom called. At first, I had a bad feeling and didn't want to pick up the phone, but it kept ringing day and night. Finally, after countless calls, I answered. It had been a while since I last spoke with my mom, but she showed no signs of missing me. Instead, she jumped straight to her point. Listen carefully. It's serious. Eva has been diagnosed with a disease. She needs an organ transplant. We need your help. It was all so sudden that I couldn't process it. After hearing more details, I learned that Eva had recently been diagnosed with a condition requiring an organ transplant. She was currently undergoing dialysis. In order to be freed from dialysis, she needed a kidney transplant. Living donors are limited to the patient's relatives, so my mom was asking me to get tested to see if I was a match as a donor. I told her I would call back later and hung up, needing time to think. Donating a kidney meant giving up one of my 2 kidneys to Eva. While they say that living with 1 kidney usually does not affect daily life, the functionality would undoubtedly decrease compared to having 2. There were risks involved with the surgery, too. Thinking about it, I couldn't shake the question. Was it really necessary for me to take such a risk for Eva, who had always treated me as inferior? If I turned out to be a match, I knew my parents and Eva would team up to pressure me into donating. No, it wouldn't be persuasion. It would be their usual orders. Give up your kidney for dear Eva, right now. Imagining that scenario made me feel heartless, but I couldn't ignore the lingering bitterness in my heart. If it were for Robert or my parents-in-law, I wouldn't hesitate to be a donor. But I couldn't bring myself to make that decision for Eva, given everything she'd put me through. So I called my mom back as promised. I'm sorry, but I won't take the test. As expected. What are you saying? Are you even part of this family anymore? Without thinking, I shot back. You're the ones who never treated me like family. To my mom exploded in anger. All you care about is Eva and John. Don't call me just when it's convenient for you. Before she could respond, I quickly hung up. I was tired of being called family after all this time. But my parents and Eva didn't give up. Now, all 3 of them showed up at my house, unannounced. It was the first time they had come to my house, but they must have found the address from the wedding announcement card. Reluctantly, I opened the door and said, "It's really inconvenient for you to come all the way here. Please, Harper, take the test." Immediately after, "Please, Harper, help Eva." "Yes, help me, Harper." Mom and Eva chimed in. Their voices were louder than necessary, almost as if they wanted the neighbors to hear. The way they were suddenly calling me by name, despite never doing so before, felt insincere and off-putting. When I lived at home, they would just say hey or you, never even calling my name. Just then, Robert appeared from the back of the house and asked, "Is something wrong?" It happened to be the time of day when Robert was usually at home. When Robert saw my parents and Eva, he quickly came to the door to greet them. This was their first time meeting Robert. When Eva saw Robert, her eyes lit up, and she smiled sweetly, like she used to with some of the boyfriends she secretly brought home when our parents weren't around during high school. I remember clearly how I'd been made to clean Eva's room the day before and prepare snacks and drinks on the day of the visits. I also remember Eva's face as she introduced me to her boyfriends with a laugh, saying, "Oh, that's just our housekeeper." Perhaps Eva was trying to make a good impression on Robert, too. For a moment, I thought so, but now wasn't the time to dwell on such thoughts. Robert, being polite, said, "Please, make yourselves comfortable." With that, my parents and Eva made themselves at home, as if they had every right to do so. Once seated in the living room, "I'll have coffee." "I'd like tea." "Oh, I want ice cream." They each started making requests. It was exactly like when I lived at home. Robert, smiling warmly, "Oh, we still have that ice cream we ordered the other day. Let's serve that." Not wanting to create an awkward atmosphere, I reluctantly agreed to their requests and started preparing everything. While I was getting things ready, the 4 of them, including Robert, were chatting happily. As soon as I served the drinks and ice cream, my parents and Eva got to the real reason for their visit. They began explaining Eva's illness how difficult her dialysis treatments were, and how I had refused to take the donor compatibility test. They spoke carefully, as if explaining it all for Robert's benefit. As expected, Robert nodded along sympathetically as he listened. When they finished, my parents and Eva turned to Robert with their plea. Yes, to Robert, not to me. Dad called out, "Robert, could you ask Harper to take the test, please?" Without hesitation, Robert nodded and said, "Yay, I think that's a good idea too." He then turned to me. "Harper, why don't you at least take the test? If it turns out you're a match, you can talk to the doctors and then make a decision." As soon as Robert took their side, my parents and Eva exchanged glances and smiled, as if to say, "We've won." It was as if he was saying, "Everything's fine." I was a bit bothered by that attitude, but Robert had a point. I wasn't even sure I could be a donor yet, so arguing didn't seem like it would lead anywhere. Besides, if the results showed I wasn't compatible, they would have no choice but to give up. With that in mind, I agreed to take the test. But, to my surprise, I turned out to be the only one in the family who could be a donor. After hearing the doctor's explanation, my mind went blank for a moment, and I returned home in a daze, unable to make a decision right away. That night, when I consulted Robert after he came back from work, he thought for a moment and said, "I see." Then he looked at me and said, "I've heard a lot from you, so I understand why you're struggling with this decision. But Eva's fighting her illness with everything she's got. Isn't family about helping each other in times of need?" "Family, huh?" I muttered. I, who had never been treated as family before, was now supposed to give up a part of my body to help this family in need. Though I didn't say it out loud, that was my true feeling. What does being a real family mean, anyway? I told him I needed more time to think, and went to bed early that night. I didn't sleep well, but I went to work as usual the next day. Work helped me take my mind off things. But when I got home, I found my parents and Eva waiting for me in front of the house. "Please, Harper," Dad said as soon as he saw me, and the three of them begged me. They had never asked me for anything before. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, I told them to come inside. But they refused, saying the doorway was fine, and begged me once again. "Harper, we've relied on you too much in the past, and I'm sorry. But please, for the last time, can you donate to Eva?" Dad's words made it clear they already knew about the test results. Mom added, "I'm sorry for all the trouble we've caused you, Harper. I regret so much." And Eva, "Harper, I'm sorry for everything," with tears in her eyes, said. Watching the three of them apologizing so deeply, I felt my heart waver. Robert's words about helping each other in tough times echoed in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the moment when I finally see the bonds of family. With that thought, I decided to donate to Eva. The transplant surgery was successful, and I was left with one kidney. As the doctor had explained beforehand, my daily life wasn't affected, and I only needed regular checkups. That day, after a smooth hospital visit with no issues, I left and thought I might do some shopping nearby. While walking, I noticed two familiar figures. Robert and Eva were walking towards me, with Eva's arm linked around Robert's. They looked happy, almost like a couple. Robert noticed me first, and for a moment, he looked uncomfortable, but then he shrugged, as if he didn't care, and pointed me out to Eva. When Eva saw me, she gave a triumphant smile. Still holding Robert's arm, she walked up to me and said, "Oh, I guess we've been caught." She laughed loudly. Robert, too, laughed along awkwardly. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. "What do you mean?" I barely managed to get the words out, and Eva, completely unbothered, replied, "Come on, Harper. It's obvious if you just look." I ignored Eva. Explain it to me properly, and asked Robert. Robert shrugged again, responding casually, don't be so mad. Men like younger women. It's just the way it is. I married you, Harper, because you're honest and sincere, but that alone, it just doesn't satisfy me as a man. Right? Harper's not that cute anyway. Eva laughed, jumping in. Yay, that's part of it, Robert added, sounding like he had nothing left to hide. They both burst out laughing. Eva looked at me standing there, not moving an inch, and said with a coldness that didn't tries, you should just give up on Robert. He's too good for you. Besides, Robert's not a part of your body, so letting him go shouldn't be that hard, right? Hey, don't talk about me like that. Oh, come on, I didn't mean it that way, Eva teased. Looking at their shallow, disgusting behavior, I was consumed with regret. Of course, Eva had not changed. Why haven't I seen that? Fueled by anger, I dialed my parents' house. My mom answered. I spat out the words. Did you know? Eva is having an affair with my husband. Right in front of me. But Mom feigned surprise. She probably knew all along. Feigning concern, she said, I'm sure this is hard for you, but you have to understand Eva has been fighting her illness so hard, unlike you. As her sister, you should bear this. Right, Michael? She asked for my dad's agreement, who must have been nearby. From somewhere farther away, Dad chimed in, yeah, that's about right. Their words were laughable. There was never any real bond in this family. Once they'd gotten what they needed from me, I would be relegated back to my role as the outsider, no longer a family member, and they'd continue to take everything from me as if it were their right. I steeled myself, took a deep breath, and said, we're no longer family. I'm cutting ties with you all for good this time. There was no need to wait for a response. I'd already made up my mind. I had completely lost any affection for Eva with her manipulative ways, for my parents who always sided with her, and for the foolish Robert. You two are nothing but strangers to me now, so don't expect any more mercy from me. My firm stance must have caught them off guard. They said nothing in return, just looked stunned. I turned my back on them and never looked back again. After that, I proceeded with my divorce from Robert through a lawyer. Robert, not wanting to deal with any drama, admitted to the affair without much fuss, and we came to an agreeable settlement over the division of assets and compensation. And so I was alone again, but with no regrets. From that day forward, I threw myself back into work, determined to start a new chapter in my life. 6 months later, just as I had found peace in my everyday life, it was disrupted once again. The trigger. A sudden phone call from Eva. At first, I ignored it, but being as stubborn as she was, she called again and again. Finally, I picked up the phone, only to be greeted by Eva's desperate voice. Harper, please, I'm begging you. Help me. I was dumbfounded. I've already helped you enough. After everything you did, how can you still ask for my help? No, it's not like that. I'm really in trouble. Don't be so mean. Eva, with a voice that sounded on the verge of tears, began talking without me even asking. She told me that about 6 months after the organ donation, she started suffering from rejection symptoms. Even though she was taking the medication prescribed by the doctor, there was no sign of improvement, and eventually, she was diagnosed with chronic rejection, meaning the transplant had failed. Now her only options were to resume dialysis or undergo a second transplant. Hearing all of that, I could only respond with this: I can't do it. You know that well enough. I only have one kidney left now. I know, but please, listen. Despite everything, Eva continued talking. When told she needed another transplant, She immediately asked Dad, Mom, and Robert to undergo donor compatibility tests again. All three of them agreed to the tests, but none of them qualified due to poor lifestyle habits. Currently, Eva and Robert are living at home, but since I left, their lifestyle has deteriorated rapidly. Apparently, during the time we lived together, I handled all the cooking and cleaning. None of them can cook properly, so they quickly gave up and started relying on takeout meals. They also stopped cleaning, so the house is in total disarray. They're really hopeless, aren't they? Completely unaware of her own position, Eva sighed dramatically, looking down on them. When I stayed silent in exasperation, Eva hurried to continue, as if afraid I might end a conversation. And, John hasn't taken the test yet, so I told Dad and Mom to ask him. The moment Eva suggested it, my parents lost their temper, accusing her of wanting to turn John into a disabled person. Apparently, they considered having incomplete organs as the equivalent of being disabled. When Eva realized that she had been seen as disabled, she became furious, leading to a massive argument with them. Their relationship became so strained it couldn't be repaired, and now they have no contact at all. So you see, Harper, there's no one left to ask but you. On the other end of the phone, I heard her sniffling. Maybe she was crying. Whether it was real or just an act, I didn't care anymore. I flatly refused. I've already told you no from the start. Please, there must be a way. How about we go to the hospital together and talk to the doctor? Maybe they'll come up with a good idea. Why'd I have to go that far for you? Because I'm your only sister. Eva sounded incredulous, but if anyone should be incredulous, it was me. I told you we're done. You're not Eva or anyone to me anymore. I gave you a kidney, and after everything, you still stole someone's husband, and now you expect help. Eva faltered. Even after thinking about it, she couldn't come up with an excuse, but still, she didn't give up. Crying loudly, I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. I'll never do anything like that again, I swear. I've really learned my lesson. She apologized, repeatedly saying she had no one else to turn to, but I ignored it all. Before hanging up, I told Eva one last thing. Last time, I let your fake words deceive me into giving you an organ, but it won't work anymore. Even if I had 2 kidneys left, I wouldn't give one to you. I'm not going to help someone who stole from me. So just give up already. Stick with dialysis. Good luck with that. Goodbye. I cut off the voice trying to cling to me by ending the call. Then I immediately blocked Eva's contact. Just to be safe, I also decided to block the contacts of my entire former family, including Robert. This action triggered a new development. A few days later, a colleague from work told me that Robert had come to my office. He must have realized that I had blocked him, since I hadn't told him my new address. He probably came to the office. The fact that he went out of his way to visit means he must have something to say, but I bet it's nothing good. Luckily, Robert's visit ended in vain. I had been transferred to another branch shortly after the organ donation. Both my colleagues and superiors were aware of the situation, so they didn't tell him my new location. But you should still be careful, my colleagues said, showing concern for me. I thanked them and decided to live more cautiously, keeping an eye on my surroundings when I went out, and securing my home more carefully. However, an unwanted encounter occurred unexpectedly. One day, when I went to my usual hospital for a follow-up checkup after the transplant, I ran into Eva in the waiting room. As soon as Eva saw me, "Hey, you've blocked me, haven't you?" she rushed over and yelled. People around us looked shocked as they turned to see what was going on. "Calm down, you're disturbing everyone." There's nothing left for us to talk about, and if I don't block you, you'll just keep calling, right? I responded, but Eva got even more enraged. I'm not done talking yet. You're not getting away today. No matter how many times you say it, it's the same. I'm done with my chick hip, so I'm leaving now. Then Eva grabbed onto my arm. I told you, you're not getting away. Hearing the commotion, a female hospital staff member rushed over to us. Is there a problem? I was about to apologize for causing a scene in the hospital when Eva cut me off. It's her fault. She won't give me a kidney. Eva pointed at me, making unreasonable claims. And the staff seemed to grasp the situation. She addressed, I believe you're here for dialysis treatment today, so please follow me. Eva in a soothing tone. She seemed to be trying to separate Eva from me. However, I'm not done talking yet, Eva stubbornly replied. As both I and the hospital staff were getting fed up with Eva's persistence, something started to stir at the entrance of the hospital. When I looked over, I saw my parents and Robert rushing towards us. It seems that Eva had contacted them without me knowing. Seeing them bolstered Eva's confidence. Harper, hurry up and hand over the rest of your organs. As she started shouting again. Then Robert shoved Eva aside and stood in front of me. Harper, I'm divorcing Eva. She's too much trouble. She's always angry at home. So let's get remarried, okay? Huh? What are you suddenly talking about? Save that for later. The one who scolded Robert and an enraged Eva was Mom. But Mom wasn't scolding Robert's selfish statement or Eva's outburst. She just wanted to say what she had been thinking. Harper, because your organ didn't fit well, Eva has to go through dialysis again. What are you going to do about it? Take responsibility and pay for all the dialysis treatments. That's right. Do as Mom says. Pay up, money. Dad echoed Mom's words, standing beside her. I was furious at the four of them, and finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. Enough already. For a moment, the room went completely silent. Do you even realize where you are? This is a hospital. You're disturbing everyone here, so hurry up and get out. Suddenly, voices from other patients and visitors in the waiting room chimed in. She's right. You can't just show up without a reason and cause a scene like this. That woman has been making a racket for a while now. Something seriously wrong with her. Criticism flew from all directions. Causing such a scene in a hospital waiting room, how embarrassing can it get? Even my family and Robert finally seemed to notice the glares they were getting from all around. Eva and Robert started whispering to each other, blaming one another in hushed tones, while Dad and Mom awkwardly pretended not to notice the situation, trying to play it off as if nothing was wrong. But the quiet chuckles and disapproving looks from the people around made it painfully clear that their attempt to save face was failing miserably. Just as I was feeling completely fed up, the doctor stepped out of the examination room unexpectedly. It was the doctor who had performed the kidney transplant. He must have heard the commotion and calmly approached us. I have something to discuss with you all as well. Please follow me. He led us into a private room in the back. After asking us to wait for a moment, he left, and I seized the chance to speak while the four of them were still quiet. First, I turned to face Eva and my parents. I've told you over the phone, but I'll say it again, I'm done with you all. And blaming me for the transplant rejection, that's completely absurd. There's absolutely no reason for me to help you anymore, and I certainly won't be donating another organ. So just give up and stop contacting me from now on. Then I turned to Robert. As for getting back together, not a chance. You think after cheating on me with Eva, I'd ever love you again? Stop flattering yourself. Even though I'd made it crystal clear, the four of them still refused to give up. and started arguing furiously all over again. At that moment, the doctor returned, this time with a nurse and a couple of hospital staff who had stepped in earlier to try to calm things down. I don't usually say things like this, but you really need to stop this nonsense. The doctor's tone didn't change at all as he spoke. Caught off guard by his unexpected words, all four of them stood there, mouths open, in stunned silence. The doctor sighed and looked directly at Eva. Eva, after your transplant, you didn't show up for your follow-up appointments, and you've been eating whatever you wanted, completely ignoring your dietary restrictions. The nurses went over the guidelines with you, but you disregarded every single one. And now you're asking your sister for another kidney. How selfish can you be? You've made a mockery of the transplant, and now you're making a scene in the hospital. We can't treat you here anymore, so I'm going to have to ask you to transfer to another facility. Eva, her hair wild and disheveled, screamed hysterically, "You're just abandoning me. How could you? Don't you dare leave me hanging like this, you hack." She hurled her rage at him, but the doctor didn't flinch. It seemed he had long grown tired of Eva's behavior. Robert, looking thoroughly exasperated, told Eva to quiet down, which only enraged her further. She shoved him, and the two of them were now arguing bitterly. My parents, on their part, were causing a scene with the hospital staff, demanding a refund for the treatment costs, which, of course, was completely out of the question, while my former family kept up their useless protest. A nurse quietly approached me. "Harper, please come this way while you can." Grateful for the nurse's kindness, I slipped away before my former family could notice, and made my escape. Thanks to the nurse's guidance, I managed to leave the hospital safely, taking a quiet route out on my own. A few days passed. Then I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It turned out to be Eva, of all people. Apparently, she had gone so far as to change her number. I braced myself, expecting her to hurl some irrational anger at me, but surprisingly, she didn't seem to have that intention this time. From what she told me, her doctor had given up hope on her recovery, and now she was receiving dialysis treatment at another hospital. However, our parents had recently started distancing themselves from Eva and had flat out refused to help her with the treatment costs. And then, during one of their frequent arguments about the medical expenses, Robert left divorce papers at home and disappeared. "He's so pathetic, I should have been the one to dump him first," Eva spat out in frustration, and I coldly replied, "I don't care." "Why are you even telling me this?" Eva flustered, stammered, "Oh right, I mean, that's not really what I wanted to say." Her tone shifted to one of desperation. "Look, I'm fighting this battle alone now, and the medical bills are overwhelming. Harper, could you help me out, just a little?" "Of course not. How many times do I have to say we're not family anymore? Stop contacting me." With that, I cut off the call. No hesitation, and I didn't forget to block her number afterward. But next, I received an email from Robert on my computer. He had changed his email address, too, apparently. In the email, he explained that after he'd left the divorce papers and ran off, he tried returning to his parents' house but was quickly kicked out. His parents had not forgiven him for how he treated me. "How could you be such a fool with a wife like Harper?" They had scolded him, furious. I felt a pang of sympathy for his parents, who had always been kind to me, but none whatsoever for Robert. After all, he had it coming. With nowhere else to go, Robert had reluctantly returned to Eva's house, but both she and their parents were blaming him for everything, and he was feeling the pressure. He wrote in the email, "That's why I want to come stay with you, Harper." But of course, I hadn't told him where I was living, so I ignored the email and set it to be blocked as well. For a while, it seemed that Eva, my parents, and Robert were in a state of constant conflict. Then one day, I got a call from Mom. Dad was apparently with her too. Since it was from a payphone, I picked up without thinking. Mom's hysterical voice came through the speaker. "It's terrible. John has gone missing." I sighed softly. "John made his choice, Mom. You should leave him alone now. We can't just let it go like that." Mom's voice hit another high note, her panic escalating. And then, in a torrent of words, she let out the truth. Apparently, they believed that John had left because of Eva. They suspected that Eva had pressured John into becoming her donor behind their backs. When John left, Eva panicked, fearing the loss of a donor. When my parents found out, they had a huge fight with Eva. "But you know that's not the only reason John left, don't you?" I asked. And for a moment, Mom was at a loss for words. "Did John tell you something?" Mom asked in a low voice. Since there was no need to hide anything anymore, I answered simply, "I've heard everything." I could hear Mom gasp on the other side of the phone. "It was your fault, wasn't it? What are you talking about? Don't take it out on me just because you failed to use John." I immediately deflected Mom's anger. Even after I cut ties with them, I continued to stay in touch with John. When I left home, John was still very young, the only person I worried about. So when John reached out to me, I didn't hesitate to help. As I told Mom, I had already heard everything. Not only had Eva pressured John into becoming a donor, but my parents had also put pressure on him. John wanted to go to college, but they were dead set against it, pushing him to get a job instead. And it was all for their own benefit. My parents, fed up with Eva and Robert, had plans to ditch the two of them and live as a trio. But from the time I was born, my parents had been addicted to gambling, always short on money, and their income wasn't enough to keep up with their spending. After Eva was born, it seemed like they stepped away from gambling for a while, but they couldn't quit for good and eventually relapsed. So they wanted John to get a job and help out with the finances. Because of all this, John had long been questioning the family dynamic. After hearing his side of the story, I explained to John that organ donation can't be done without the donor's consent, and that you have to be at least 20 to donate. I then encouraged him to take this opportunity to distance himself from the family. John made up his mind and left home when he started college, moving into his own apartment. When John needed a guarantor to rent the apartment, I signed the necessary papers for him. He also took out a student loan, using the same system I had, which allowed him to completely break away from the family. As Mom's anger still simmered, I decided to end the conversation with one final statement. "I think we've said all there is to say, so I'm hanging up now. I've told you many times, but we're not family anymore, so don't contact me again." I could still hear her voice through the speaker, but I cut the call abruptly. Even though I blocked her number, she kept calling from different numbers, so I decided to change my phone number altogether. After that, I launched a full-scale counterattack to make sure my former family would leave me alone for good. First, I attached a recording and sent it via email to the hospital where Eva was currently receiving treatment. The recording contained Eva's voice from her last hospital visit, where she was yelling at the doctor, "I'll eat whatever I want. What's wrong with that? I'm done with this dialysis nonsense." I had secretly recorded it on my smartphone at the time. Next, I contacted Robert's workplace to let them know that he had been showing up at my office during work hours for no legitimate reason. Finally, I mailed photos to each of my parents' workplaces. These photos showed them gambling during work hours. I had secretly taken them at one of their regular gambling spots. I knew the gambling place they frequently visited, so I secretly recorded them. It seems that these counterattacks were quite effective. It seems Robert and my parents were demoted and received a pay cut at work, causing their standard of living to deteriorate even further. His parents, who had hoped John would become the breadwinner, are wandering the neighborhood daily, searching for him, but it's all in vain, as John has already moved far away. As for Eva, it seems she was scolded harshly by the hospital, and once again, she fiercely protested to the doctor. However, this time, neither her parents nor Robert supported her, and she's feeling down. Now, she's desperately searching for John on her own. She still seems to believe that John will agree to be the donor. Speaking of John, he's doing well at his college, where he's currently attending. We're still in touch, and we meet up occasionally. For me, John feels more like a distant relative than a sibling. I'm sure John feels the same way. The time we spent together at home was so short that John said he couldn't even remember my face. But perhaps that's why I couldn't bring myself to hold a grudge against John, as if he were a former family member. No, more than that. I'm truly grateful that despite growing up in such a harsh environment, John turned out to be the only family member I'm happy to have. From now on, I think we'll continue to have a relationship that feels more like distant family, rather than true siblings, keeping just the right amount of distance. Now, let me talk about myself for a bit. I've continued my regular hospital checkups since the organ donation, but I've had no issues and have been living in good health. As for work, there has been a major change. The company asked me to transfer to a new branch. It's a job with significant responsibility, but I made up my mind and decided to accept it. Since moving to the new branch, I've been working hard with my new colleagues, and in fact, I've started to get quite close to a man who transferred from another branch at the same time. I'm enjoying both my work and personal life to the fullest, and right now, I'm incredibly happy.
You can't possibly handle a divorce. Diana, my sister-in-law, looked down on me with a mocking laugh. Anyway, cool your head. My husband William, face red with anger, was shouting, spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and my sister. If you don't want to, we're getting a divorce. I had been waiting for these words. Fine, it's a divorce then. You're okay with that, right? I endured insults and scorn to draw out these words. All the evidence is in place. Saying those words, you've doomed yourself to hell. My name is Lily, a 29-year-old housewife with no children. I used to work at a clothing manufacturer, but quit 3 years ago after getting married, and now I sew as a hobby. William is 32, sweated it out in the rugby team during college, and got a job at a major housing manufacturer through rugby connections. His body is imposing in every dimension, giving off an intimidating presence. If I so much as talk back or display more knowledge than William, he instantly gets moody and starts lecturing. Now, all I think about is how to live without upsetting William. Additionally, the silent pressure from not having children weighs on me from William and the in-laws. Yesterday, Diana got divorced. I could picture Diana's sharp-featured, stern face. Is that so? It was expected. I couldn't imagine Diana's intense personality sustaining a marriage for long. Not much of a reaction from you. William glared at me. It's not that. I was too shocked to speak. I wonder if I managed to hide my lack of surprise. Thinking it was inevitable she'd get divorced would surely lead to trouble later. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Almost dropped the cup I was holding. That was a close one. I managed to deflect. Otherwise, I would have been in for a lecture. William's typical lectures began to fill my head. The toilet was dirty. The rice was hard. You don't work, so you should at least take care of the house more carefully. His go-to line was always, "Who do you think is feeding you?" William never laid a hand on me. Instead, he chipped away at my spirit with his words. Having children might change things, but there's no sign of that happening yet. I've decided to do it. William looked at me irritably. Oops. I must have missed what he said. I'm sorry. The shock made me zone out. Not again, hopefully. It won't lead to a lecture. So, Diana's husband Paul cheated on her. He even canceled the lease on the apartment Dad and Mom also lived in and moved out alone. William continued speaking. Seems he's in a good mood. I couldn't believe the always smiling and kind Paul could cheat. It'd be more believable if Diana were the one cheating. Divorce papers were forced on her. She's really down. Being a housewife, she has no income and is struggling. How about alimony or child support? If it's a divorce due to cheating, she should be able to divide the property and claim alimony and child support. There's no way she could get that. William slammed his fist on the table. I involuntarily tensed up. Don't act so high and mighty. You couldn't possibly understand all that. Stop talking like you know everything. You're not smart enough to think about such complicated things. My mouth was dry, and I couldn't speak. All you do is sit at the sewing machine all day. Such a demeaning way to talk about my passion is too cruel. I could never say this face to face, but sewing is my only hobby and passion. Recently, the dresses I've made have been well received, and some people have even expressed interest in buying them. Poor Heather, too. She's only 7, doesn't understand what her dad did. And my parents, too. I wonder what they'll do. William seems to be in a good mood, not in lecture mode. Can't we do something for them? Well, I'll go take a bath for now. I need to prepare William's change of clothes. If there's no new clothes ready after his bath, it'll spoil his mood. I'll go to my sister's place tomorrow. I couldn't imagine the always gentle Paul cheating. He always seemed to be at Diana's beck and call. Joseph and Olivia were tough on Paul, too. Maybe that's why he cheated. But he always seemed so kind to the children. It's natural to think custody of Heather will go to Diana. Considering Heather is in the lower grades of elementary school, her future struggles come to mind. But if the affair is true, she could get compensation and child support. Why was he so angry about it? I can never tell where his boiling point really is. It's truly exhausting to always talk in fear. The next day, William brought up the same topic as yesterday. We really should do something to help. What does he mean by something? A question pops into my head. Live together maybe? Joseph and Olivia lived with them, but it's impossible for 6 people to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. How about Diana uses our bedroom, and we let Dad and the rest use the room where you have your sewing machine? We'll figure out somewhere for us to sleep. William says it so lightly, but it's impossible. I had forgotten how much William loves his family. Christmas, summer vacations, everyone's birthdays, we always gather at his parents' house. I've always felt uncomfortable around William's family, but to have no place to sleep and not be able to sew. William slammed his fist on the table. I instinctively tensed up. This isn't the time to listen to your selfishness. Helping the family is important. Is wanting a place to sleep and to continue my only joy, sewing, really being selfish? I felt dizzy. I realized talking to him is pointless. The next day, I met with my college friend Madison at a cafe for a change of scenery. It was a long-awaited reunion, but I found myself complaining about my home life. That's definitely emotional abuse. Yeah, I thought so too, but I didn't have anyone to talk to, and I thought it was okay as long as I followed what William said and didn't get yelled at. Tears started to spill. Now's not the time to cry. What you need to do is escape from there. Madison handed me her business card. It had a law firm's name and the title of legal assistant on it. After graduating from college, I went back to study and entered law school. Now, I'm working part-time at that law firm. I was surprised that Madison, who was flashy and playful in college, had become a law student. Our office has a lot of excellent lawyers who are strong in divorce cases. Could I also become free if I got away from these people? The thought lifted a weight off my shoulders, and I suddenly felt relieved. As we said goodbye, "You've endured a lot so far. You don't have to endure any more." Madison gently patted my head. A week later, I returned from shopping to find Diana and Heather in the living room, with William sitting across from them. It's a weekday. Why is William here? And Diana and her family, too. Looking curiously at William. "Yeah, I left work early. It's a big deal for us. Can't be working at a time like this," he said. Diana looked at me with a smug face, looking down on me. "I'm thirsty. I want peach-flavored juice." Heather asked for a drink without any hesitation. Despite being young, doesn't she know to show some restraint? "We don't have such sweet drinks since we don't have kids. Sorry, this auntie isn't very thoughtful." Am I not thoughtful? After all the care and devotion I've shown William, being called inconsiderate made me question what my marriage has been all about. I resisted the urge to glare at William. "Hurry up and bring some water." Prompted by William, I hurried to get water. "It's a bit old and small, but it looks like we can manage," Diana muttered, mocking our home. "It may be old, but it's renovated and very comfortable for me." What an attitude. "Mom, where's my room?" Heather unabashedly spoke to her mom, Diana. I was taken aback by Heather's words. "A room? What does she mean?" "This place is too small. You'll have to bear with it." What is this all about? I have a bad feeling about this. I don't know where to start, and I can't find the words to respond. Diana is having a tough time right now. It's difficult to work when Heather is still in elementary school. Of course, it's tough, especially with Diana's selfish nature. It's sad she was cheated on and kicked out of her house. But I don't think it's up to us to take on all of that. Paul is the one at fault. What baffles me is why Diana isn't demanding alimony and child support from Paul. With alimony and child support, the Diana family shouldn't have to live like this. So, I've decided we'll support Diana along with Dad and Mom. Support. Did William just say we're going to support Diana and her family? What does that mean? Oh, I see. They'll live here for a while until they find a place of their own. I realize it's just William's unique way of expressing his love for his family. Please, take care of us. I find myself asking almost pleadingly. Yes, make yourself at home. Diana crosses her arms and looks down on me. It's as if I'm the one asking them to stay. There's some cleaning up to do around the house, so the move will be at the end of the month. With that, their arrival here is confirmed. Lily, make sure you clear out the room by then. Though it was unbearable to give up my sewing, my hobby, or rather my reason for living, I told myself it was only for a short while. I had planned to send my belongings back to my parents' house for storage. But William's next words left me shocked. "Why don't you just get rid of that sewing machine and those clothes? That sounds like a good idea. It will make our lives easier." I was speechless. To think my only hobby was regarded so lightly. I felt as if not just my personality, but my entire life was being denied. After calming down, I noticed 4 half-drunk glasses left on the table. It seems Diana and her family didn't bother to clean up before they left. William, meanwhile, was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with his mobile phone. "I'm going out for a bit." William left the house with an unusually cheerful demeanor. Was he that happy about the idea of living with his entire family? Meanwhile, I felt like I couldn't stand this life anymore. I picked up my mobile phone and made a call. As scheduled, Diana and her family moved in at the end of the month. Give me a hand, will you? There's so much stuff. When I went to the entrance, William was there holding a cardboard box, with Diana and Heather wearing a backpack behind him. Welcome, or should I say, welcome back? William, as if to say hurry up and help, shoved a box into my hands. There's more, so please hurry and bring them in. Diana and Heather walked past me, who was frozen in place with the box, and entered the house. Lily, did you manage to clear out the room? Yes, I sent the sewing machine and the clothes I made to my parents' house the other day. I tried to sound as sarcastic as possible, but I wonder if it got through. I had asked my parents to carefully store them, as I would definitely need them later. Mom, where's my room? Heather innocently asked Diana the same question as before. With 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, how could they possibly arrange a separate room for a child? Sorry, but my room will be for Joseph and Olivia, so we can't provide a separate room for Heather. Grandpa and Grandma's room, huh? That's annoying. Heather muttered as she passed by me. The thought of living together like this weighed heavily on me. Is this how all kids are these days? Diana, sitting in the living room, said, I'm tired, Lily. Can you get me something to drink? Demanding like a queen. I want something too. Peach juice would be nice. I realized I was still frozen in the entrance and headed back to the living room. Come on, don't just stand there. We didn't have peach juice. I got grape juice instead. Is that okay? Huh? Why? I told you last time. You're useless. Heather criticized me with language that seemed too mature for an elementary school student. I nearly blurted out, Is that the only way you can talk? But I desperately held it back. Couldn't you have just ordered it online? Diana, far from apologizing for her daughter's rudeness, added her own criticism. I concluded to myself, like mother, like daughter. I'm sorry, this is all we have. What? Heather voices her displeasure without any reservation. Well, can't be helped. Heather, just bear with it. Lily, what are you doing? Hurry up and help. At that moment, William's loud voice came from the entrance. Yes, I'm coming now. Not wanting to upset anyone in Diana's presence, I hurried to the entrance. Finally, we managed to bring all the cardboard boxes inside. As I was unpacking and arranging Diana's belongings, Joseph and his family arrived. We'll be in your care. So, where's our room? This man isn't a bad person, but I wonder if lack of restraint runs in their blood. Since we're at it, how about we order some steaks? Lily, call the steakhouse for us. I sigh internally. Surely, he intends to pay for this with the savings I had before we got married. And he dares talk about supporting them? As everyone gathers in the living room to eat the steaks, William solemnly declares, This is a new start for our family. Everyone except me nods in agreement. Indeed, let's keep up the good work. Joseph, with a steak in front of him, seems to be in a good mood, smiling. So, do you have any idea where you'll live next? My question wipes the smile off William's face. Great. I've upset him again. What are you talking about? We're living together here at least until Heather is grown up. My world goes dark at his words. That's right. We're going to live here forever. Diana says it as if it's the most natural thing. But is it really? Our family is in trouble. Can you just leave them be? I can't see why we need to take care of them until Heather grows up. Listen, I'm the head of this household. It's natural for me to decide who we support and who lives with us. So what am I? Your housekeeper? Besides, when we have kids, Diana will help with the childcare. This is for your own good. For my good? That's a classic line of moral harassment. That's what Madison had said when we met last time. I searched for an opportunity to retort, waiting for the right words. Why do we need Diana to raise them? I want to raise my own children. Why? Because, Lily, you want to work outside, right? Then work. I'll take care of them. I'll be the big sister, right? Heather answers with a smug look, raising questions about entrusting childcare to Diana, who raised such an unempathetic and Diana-less child. Right, if you work outside, it'll help with the finances, and it's good for you to get out too. William claps his hands joyfully. Yeah, support us with the money you earn. Diana stares at me with a devilish grin. I'll be grateful to have extra money besides my pension. Even Joseph looks forward to living off my earnings. What kind of family is this? Anyway, it's decided. I no longer have the energy to argue. Just say those words already. No, I can't take this. I mutter faintly. William slams his fist on the table. My body reflexively wants to move, but I restrain myself. If you don't like it, then it's divorce. Divorce is the only option. I had been waiting for those words. Fine, divorce it is. You're okay with that, right? William seems taken aback, not expecting me to agree to a divorce. He swallows his breath. Don't joke with me. You want a divorce? Were you always this cold-hearted? Joseph and Olivia look on in shock at William and me. You can't possibly handle a divorce. Diana looks down on me, laughing mockingly. Cool your head. William, red-faced, yells with spittle flying. From today, you'll support my parents and sister. If you don't want to, it's a divorce. What? But we're already divorced? What? Everyone is shocked by my declaration. That's right, we're already divorced. I pull out a copy of the divorce papers. But look, William's signature isn't here. Without it, the divorce isn't valid, right? It's a court divorce. The papers have been filed with the court. You, naive as you are, couldn't possibly have managed that. Who's behind this? The sound of William slamming his fist on the table echoes through the room, but I'm no longer surprised. I came up with everything myself. I asked a lawyer to handle the procedures, though. What nonsense are you spouting? You, of all people, you. William is so flustered he doesn't know what to say. First off, Diana, you weren't cheated on. You were the one who cheated, right? Paul told me everything. Joseph glares at Diana. What's this all about? Everyone's gaze shifts to Diana. Paul gave up on reconciling after finding out Heather was the child of Diana's affair. It's not true. My sister's not at fault. William hastily tries to defend her. William, why are you defending her? Do you have something to hide? William shakes his head frantically. I checked your credit cards. You might have taken the debit and cash cards from me, thinking you're managing everything. But the credit cards and the mobile phone contracts are all under my name since before we got married. So what? We're married, so it's our money. It's none of your business what I use it for. Then what about these frequent visits to hotels in the downtown area? I place the usage statement on the table. That's for work meetings. What about these luxury bags and wallets on the credit card statements? Did you squander money on some girl at a hostess bar? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not the type to be played. I'm in a serious relationship. I can't help but laugh at William's foolish admission. Pride and stupidity make a dangerous combination. Diana looks at William with a pale face. You just admitted to cheating. Joseph and Olivia seem disillusioned, their shoulders slumping. There's more, including call records. The other party has admitted to the affair. No wonder I couldn't reach them. Suddenly, William stands up and tries to grab me by the collar. You better stop. Everything's been recorded and filmed. William looks around and spots the mobile phone placed unnaturally. His momentum wanes, and he slumps back into his chair. Your outing after Diana and her family visited the apartment was to see that woman, wasn't it? William seems to have lost the will to fight back. The story goes back 2 days. I had visited Madison to get a lawyer's advice. The lawyer said William's actions were clear moral harassment, suggesting a codependent relationship. I was advised to separate from William as soon as possible. First, we needed evidence, so I showed the credit card statements and call records. The lawyer, "The man is quite the fool, isn't he?" laughed. I also played recordings of conversations, as suggested by Madison. "There's no way you can't get a divorce with this. And he's been eating through your finances." According to the lawyer, I could claim a significant compensation from William. "Let's kick them out of the apartment as well." Madison encouraged me. "Let's do it thoroughly." With a mischievous grin, I nodded firmly to their words. And now, with the help of a lawyer and a friend, I'm confronting William and his family. This isn't the end. William doesn't seem to have the energy to respond anymore. "You won't be able to stay in this apartment either." Diana reacts the most to this. "Why?" "William bought this apartment, didn't he?" That's when the lawyer steps in. "Please, go ahead, counselor." The lawyer, who had been waiting at the entrance, comes into the living room. "Let me explain. This apartment was jointly purchased by William and Lily. Lily owns half of it. Moreover, Lily is refusing to pay any more of the mortgage. Then William should just pay for it. You can do that much, can't you, William? Diana apparently hasn't given up on living here yet. It'll be tough, but doable." Indeed, for William, doubling the loan payments would be tough. What about the distribution of property to Lily? Lily's share will be paid in cash. There's no way I have that kind of money. Diana started crying, shaking William's shoulder. "Figure something out. You're the one who said to leave it to you. That woman is easy. Just does whatever I say. And yet, this is the mess we're in?" I handed Diana a document. "There's compensation for Diana. It's all detailed in there." Diana looked at the document and collapsed right there. I had asked the lawyer to also request compensation for Paul. As for Diana's compensation, we'll discuss it separately. If William's compensation isn't paid in one lump sum, we're considering garnishing wages from his company. No way. William could only scratch his head and so be. William will also be requesting compensation from the other woman. Suddenly, William lifted his head, looking desperate. "Please, not that. I beg you, please." William pleaded earnestly, apologizing deeply. It didn't seem sane at all. "If she finds out, I won't be able to live." He was rubbing his face, covered in snot and tears, against the floor. It was the first time I saw William lose it like this, but I didn't feel a speck of sympathy or pity. "Let's go, lawyer. Since that's the situation, it's better for everyone to find a new place to live soon." I left the apartment with a smile, glancing at William crouching on the floor. Eventually, the divorce with William was settled through mediation, not court. Joseph, Olivia, and Diana seem to have started living in a cramped, old apartment. Joseph directs traffic at road construction, while Olivia and Diana assemble parts at a nearby factory, managing somehow to make ends meet. Thanks to that, Paul has safely received his compensation. William's affair was with the wife of his boss, who is also a senior in the rugby club. A betrayal in a company with strict hierarchies. The boss refuses to let him resign, seemingly determined to torment him for life. No wonder William apologized. From now on, he'll continue to be a slave to his senior. I moved to a new apartment and am thoroughly enjoying my hobby of sewing. The dresses I sell online are popular, and I've been approached by a major select shop wanting to do business. Recently, a young buyer who really liked my clothes suggested starting a company together to make clothes on a more formal basis. I'm seriously considering getting involved, having been asked with such enthusiasm. I've also been invited to dinner by him, thinking this person with slightly droopy eyes and a kind look might be someone I can feel safe with. Until recently, I couldn't have imagined feeling so refreshingly happy, so I'm surprised at myself for being able to enjoy life this way. My mobile phone is vibrating, a call from him. I need to reply to his dinner invitation today.
Marcia, you know my word is law in this family. If you can't accept that, I'll have no problem kicking you out, you hear me? That's the kind of constant harassment and abuse I've had to endure from my mother-in-law, Sissy. It all came to a head at a recent family gathering, where for some inexplicable reason, she decided to completely ignore my existence. She went so far as to deliberately not set a place for me at the table, making it crystal clear that I was persona non grata. As the realization of Sissy's blatant snub sank in, I could feel my cheeks burning with humiliation and anger. Why should I have to put up with being treated like I'm invisible, especially in front of the whole family? I fumed silently, my patience worn thin by years of mistreatment. I'd bitten my tongue for so long, but I'd finally reached my breaking point. When my husband and my father-in-law noticed the tears welling up in my eyes and asked what was wrong, the floodgates opened and I poured out every painful detail of the hell Sissy had put me through. After hearing the whole sordid story, my husband Georgie just laughed and said, "Marcia, why don't you give her a taste of her own medicine?" Even my father-in-law Polly chuckled in agreement. "She's been dishing it out to Marcia for years, so she can't complain now." I was stunned. "Wait, you guys are okay with this?" And I blurted out incredulously. To my surprise, everyone in the room nodded in unison, and we quickly huddled together to hatch a plan. Little did Sissy know, she was about to be hit with a massive dose of public humiliation that would cost her everything, her dignity and her family. My name is Marcia, and I'm 32 years old. I used to work as a designer at a web development company, constantly burning the midnight oil ever since I graduated from vocational school. I've always been more on the introverted side, and my friends often describe me as quiet and reserved. That reserved nature made it hard for me to put myself out there in the dating world, and before I knew it, almost a decade had passed without me ever having a serious boyfriend. When I was 29, a concerned coworker decided to take pity on me and set me up on a blind date. When I arrived at the agreed-upon meeting spot, I was greeted by a tall, kind-faced man who would one day become my husband. "Hi there, I'm Georgie. Gosh, I'm feeling a bit nervous," he said with an awkward, endearing chuckle. The three of us, including the coworker who had played matchmaker, sat down and started chatting. Georgie listened attentively to my clumsy attempts at conversation, nodding and making little noises of encouragement. As we talked, we discovered a shared love of reading that instantly bonded us. "Oh, have you read that author's latest book?" I answered excitedly. "I did. It was so good, I totally ugly cried at the climax." Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and before we parted ways, Georgie and I exchanged contact information. We started dating soon after, and I found myself floating on cloud nine, giddy with the excitement of a new romance after years of being single. Georgie worked for a real estate company in the neighboring state. Although he never mentioned his salary, he seemed more financially stable than most men our age. He was always calm, collected, and sincere, treating me like a precious treasure. As time passed, I grew increasingly fond of Georgie, feeling safe and cherished in his presence. Georgie and I dated for about a year with no issues whatsoever. Then, on my birthday, he surprised me by getting down on one knee and proposing. "Marcia, will you marry me? I promise I'll always cherish you," he said, his eyes shining with love and sincerity. Tears of joy welled up in my eyes as I replied, "Yes, of course." Later, as we basked in the afterglow of our engagement, Georgie dropped a bombshell. "I know I haven't really mentioned it before, but the real estate company I work for is actually owned by my dad." I exclaimed, taken aback by this revelation, and said, "Wait, what?" Georgie continued, My family runs the real estate business and also owns some farmland. I guess you could say we're what people call landed gentry, although our holdings aren't that extensive. Having grown up in an average, middle-class family, I was stunned into silence by his words. Was I really about to marry into a family of wealthy landowners? Suddenly, a wave of anxiety washed over me. Are you sure someone like me is good enough to marry into your family? I asked hesitantly. Georgie just laughed and said, "What are you talking about? You're going to be my amazing wife, and I couldn't be prouder. I will say, though, that you might have to put in some extra effort when it comes to dealing with my extended family." Despite my lingering doubts, I promised, "I'll do my very best." In the following weeks, we made plans to formally introduce each other to our respective parents. My parents were thrilled about the engagement, giving us their wholehearted blessing. Next, it was time to visit Georgie's family home. As we pulled up to the estate, I was awestruck by its sheer size, immediately feeling the stark contrast between our family's economic status. Georgie led me into the living room, where a middle-aged couple and an elderly woman were waiting. Georgie introduced me to his family. "This is my dad, Polly. Over here is my mom, Sissy. And this is the real head of the household, my grandmother, Carol. Everyone, this is Marcia, the woman I've been dating." I greeted respectfully and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Marcia, and I look forward to getting to know you better." Polly, who bore a striking resemblance to Georgie, beamed at me and said, "Georgie has told us so much about you. We're thrilled to finally meet you in person." "Thank you so much," I replied, handing a gift I had brought to Sissy, who was standing nearby. Sissy, dressed in flashy, expensive-looking clothes, immediately peered into the gift bag and remarked, "What's this? I've never seen or heard of these candies before." I had purposely chosen a local confectioner from my hometown, but before I could explain, Sissy continued, "They seem rather plain, don't they? For an occasion like this, I would have preferred something more extravagant, like gourmet chocolates from a high-end department store. But then again, I suppose they suit you, given how drab and unremarkable you are." She looked me up and down with a critical eye, her words cutting deep. I was stunned by her blatant rudeness, but Georgie quickly came to my defense. "Cut it out, Mom. That's incredibly disrespectful." Sissy started to argue. But Georgie. However, he ignored her and announced, "Dad, Mom, Grandmother, I want to marry Marcia." Polly's face lit up with joy. "Son, if that's what you two have decided, then you have my full support. Georgie, I just want you to be happy. Mom, Sissy, you're okay with this too, right?" Sissy, however, objected. "Our family has a prestigious lineage. Don't you think we should be more selective about who Georgie marries? Surely there are more glamorous, well-bred young ladies out there who would be a better match." Georgie was about to protest, but before he could, his grandmother Carol, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Sissy, you've been nothing but obnoxious since the moment they arrived. From what I can see, Marcia is a polite, kind-hearted girl. I wholeheartedly approve of their union. Marcia, dear, please take good care of our Georgie." Carol greeted to me, and I was overwhelmed by her unexpected support. Sissy, chastened by Carol's reprimand, sulked but ultimately gave her grudging consent to our marriage. "So, Marcia, what are your plans for work after the wedding?" Polly inquired. Georgie and I had discussed this, and we'd decided that I would leave my current job and work freelance after getting married. With the move, my office would be too far away, and the long hours weren't ideal. Georgie had reassured me that I didn't need to push myself too hard. When I explained that I'd be working from home, Polly nodded in understanding. "I see. Sissy and I were talking, and we thought that as a wedding gift, we could build you two a house on our property. If you're interested, would you like to live there?" I was stunned by Polly's generous offer. I'd never heard of a family giving a whole house as a wedding present. I had been mentally preparing myself for the possibility of living under the same roof as my in-laws, so the thoughtful suggestion of a separate residence on the property was a huge relief. I glanced at Georgie, and we both nodded in agreement. We decided to accept the offer and live in our own home on the family estate. Soon after, Georgie and I officially tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony in his hometown. During the reception, Sissy insisted on showcasing her newly acquired piano skills in a performance. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but I didn't want to cause any friction with Sissy, so we made time for her little recital. As I watched Sissy play the piano with more confidence than skill, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd be able to get along with her in the long run. Finally, it was time for Georgie and I to begin our new life together on his family's property. The house they had built for us as a wedding gift was stylish and incorporated all of our preferences. I was overjoyed to be living there. However, on moving day, Sissy approached me with a demand. "Marcia, starting today, you'll be in charge of preparing dinner." "What?" I blurted out, taken aback by her words. Since we were living separately, I had assumed we would handle our own meals. "You're married to Georgie now, so it's only natural, isn't it? And keep in mind that Carol is here, so make sure the dishes are healthy. I'll be evaluating your cooking skills, so do your best," Sissy declared before returning to the main house. Georgie was out at the time, so I couldn't consult with him about the situation. In the end, I found myself responsible for cooking for the entire family. Thankfully, I had been diligently practicing my culinary skills ever since Georgie and I had decided to get married. However, as I worked in the kitchen, Sissy hovered over my shoulder, critiquing my every move. "Your knife skills are sloppy. That's not how you're supposed to do it," she nitpicked incessantly. Somehow, I managed to cook up a decent meal and set the table. Just then, Polly and Carol arrived, and Georgie returned from his outing. "I couldn't find you at home, so you were here all along. Why is Marcia cooking dinner for everyone?" Georgie asked, clearly perplexed. "Honestly," I replied, "Sissy told me to." Upon hearing this, Carol confronted Sissy. "What's the point of them living separately if you're going to make her do all the housework? Sissy, isn't this supposed to be your job?" Sissy was at a loss for words. I had a sneaking suspicion that Sissy and Carol didn't get along very well. Polly tried to defuse the situation by saying, "From now on, let's agree that we'll have our meals separately. But for tonight, let's enjoy Marcia's cooking. Wow, this is delicious. Marcia, you're quite the talented chef." Both Georgie and Polly praised my culinary skills, which made me happy. Sissy was the only one who remained sullen throughout the meal, but I felt relieved to hear that we would be eating separately from now on. However, Sissy continued to come over to my place whenever Polly and Georgie were at work, ordering me to help with household chores and farm work. Despite being a housewife herself with no job, Sissy seemed intent on bossing me around. Being a newlywed, I found it difficult to refuse her demands and ended up complying with her wishes. One day, Sissy barged in while I was working and said, "Marcia, I need you to go out and buy a few things for me right now. First, get me some women's magazines. Then, some snacks. And..." I hastily interrupted her. "Sissy, I'm in the middle of work right now. I've told you so many times that I have a job and I work during the day, haven't I?" Sissy's face contorted in anger. "What job? You're just sitting at home fiddling with your computer. Don't make such a big deal out of it." I was stunned. "Excuse me?" But Sissy pointed her finger at me and declared, "Are you saying you won't listen to me, your mother-in-law? I've always done what Carol told me to do. That's what being married is all about." I didn't have the energy to argue with her any further. "Fine, I understand," said, resigning myself to being Sissy's errand girl for the day. Sissy's demands showed no signs of stopping. "I'm going to my lessons, so make sure you clean the house," she would say on a regular basis. Sissy would dump all the bothersome tasks on me and then leave in high spirits. Occasionally, Carol would notice that I was being ordered around and scold Sissy for it. During those moments, Sissy would quiet down, but she would quickly find another opportunity to boss me around. It was clear that Sissy disliked me. However, I couldn't bring myself to complain to Polly and Georgie, who were always so kind to me, so I ended up being Sissy's personal servant. To avoid rocking the boat, I patiently endured Sissy's commands and took care of the household chores and family obligations as she instructed. About 8 months into my marriage to Georgie, I discovered I was pregnant. Georgie was overjoyed, practically jumping for joy, and he went out of his way to take care of me. After confirming the baby's heartbeat, we shared the news with my parents-in-law and Carol. Polly and Carol congratulated us. However, Sissy's face grew stern as she said, "Do you know the baby's gender yet? You absolutely must give birth to a boy. He'll be the heir to this family, after all." I was taken aback, but Georgie quickly came to my defense. "That's not something Marcia can control. Besides, regardless of the gender, the baby will be our precious child." Sissy refused to listen. "No, it has to be a boy. I don't want a granddaughter. It must be a boy." Despite Georgie and Carol's attempts to reason with her, Sissy continued to pressure me to have a son. I tried my best to ignore Sissy's demands and enjoy my pregnancy. However, even though I was pregnant, Sissy still ordered me to help with household chores and farm work. When I went to assist with the farming, some relatives would express their concern, saying, "You're pregnant, so don't push yourself too hard." I would refuse if she tried to make me carry heavy objects, but then Sissy would make snide remarks. "Oh, how troublesome. Is this how wives behave these days? A mother-in-law word is law. If you can't accept that, I'll have no problem kicking you out." Constantly subjected to such comments, I gradually became exhausted. When I was 6 months pregnant, Carol fell ill and had to be hospitalized. I was worried about Carol, but Sissy came to me and said, "From now on, you'll be the one taking care of Carol while she's in the hospital. I'm too busy with my lessons and having tea with my friends." I replied, "I understand." And despite being pregnant, I began visiting Carol at the hospital. Carol would repeatedly say, "I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry about this." However, I didn't mind, as Carol had always been there to help me. With Carol no longer around to stop her, Sissy's harassment only escalated. At times, she would order me to mop the floors, even though my belly was growing larger by the day. And when I did as she asked, she would still find fault with my work. Every time she saw me, she would insist that I give birth to a boy. I knew that the child in my womb was a girl, but I didn't have the courage to tell Sissy. Eventually, the time came for me to give birth. As expected, the baby was a girl, and Georgie and I named her Risa. Polly, who had come to the hospital, was overjoyed and said, "She's so adorable." Sissy, on the other hand, had a very different reaction. "What is this? I told you to have a boy, didn't I? You never listen to a word I say." Georgie, clearly irritated, retorted, "I've told you, the baby's gender doesn't matter. If you're going to say things like that, I won't let you hold her." Sissy's face contorted in anger. "Fine, I don't want to hold that child anyway. Ugh, I can't stand to even speak to a wife like you." With that, she stormed out of the hospital room, seething with rage. Polly and Georgie apologized to me, but Sissy's attitude was deeply hurtful. After I was discharged from the hospital, Georgie and I focused on raising Risa. Sissy stopped coming to our house altogether and rarely showed her face around me. Thanks to that, I was able to enjoy a peaceful time caring for Risa. 1 month after Risa's birth, Georgie and I were summoned to Polly's house. "We've decided to introduce the baby to the extended family, so I've rented out the community center for this Sunday," Sissy announced unilaterally, leaving us shocked. Polly, looking apologetic, added, "We have to introduce the baby to the family. I'm sorry, but could you spare a little time for this?" Georgie and I nodded, agreeing to attend the family gathering that Sunday. On the day of the event, I dressed Risa up in a cute outfit and arrived at the venue early. To my surprise, Sissy came over to me, her face caked in garish makeup. "Sissy, what should I do? The catering service has arrived, and I've received the food, but..." Without answering, Sissy began placing name cards on the seats, which she had apparently brought with her. I casually glanced at the name cards as she set them down. Suddenly, I realized something. There was no seat for me. Sissy, it seems there's no seat for me." As I said this, Sissy blatantly ignored me in front of the relatives and started talking to someone else. I felt my face flush with humiliation as I realized that Sissy was deliberately snubbing me. Why should I have to endure being treated like I'm invisible, especially in front of the whole family? I'd bitten my tongue for so long, but I couldn't take it anymore. Just then, Polly and Georgie arrived, running late. Seeing me on the verge of tears, Georgie asked what was wrong. Well, you see, Sissy has been ignoring Marcia. Even when Marcia tried to talk to her, Sissy wouldn't answer and just glared at her. I felt so bad for Marcia, explained Olivia, Polly's sister, who had witnessed everything on my behalf. Unable to hold back any longer, I poured out all the painful details of the mistreatment I had suffered at Sissy's hands. I tearfully recounted how she had dumped household chores and menial tasks on me, even during my pregnancy, and how she had subjected me to cruel jibes and taunts. I told them how she had ignored me today and hadn't even prepared a seat for me. Polly and Georgie were shocked by my revelations. As I shared a particular fact, Olivia's face turned pale. She didn't, really? Just then, Sissy, utterly oblivious to the tense atmosphere, walked over and silently thrust a piece of paper into my hands before quickly leaving. The note says, "I'll be performing a flamenco dance, so play the music when I come on stage." I was flabbergasted. This was supposed to be Reese's unveiling ceremony, so why on earth did Sissy feel the need to showcase her flamenco dancing? However, Sissy had also insisted on playing the piano at our wedding reception, as she was obsessed with it at the time. She must love being the center of attention. It explains her garish makeup, too. But when Georgie saw the note, he laughed. "Marcia, why don't you give her a taste of her own medicine?" Polly chuckled in agreement. "She's been dishing it out to Marcia for years, so she can't complain now." Stunned, I blurted out, "Wait, you guys are okay with this?" To my surprise, everyone in the room nodded in unison, and we quickly huddled together to hatch a plan. Eventually, all the relatives had gathered, and after a toast, the unveiling ceremony began. During the meal, everyone took turns coming over to see Risa, cooing over her cuteness and giving her baby gifts. Georgie's relatives were all kind-hearted people who treated me with warmth and respect. Those who had heard about our plan from Olivia and Polly gave me meaningful glances and nods. I greeted them, silently conveying my gratitude for their support. Finally, Polly took the microphone and announced to the crowd, "And now, my wife Sissy will perform a flamenco dance for all of you. Please direct your attention to the stage." Immediately after his announcement, Sissy appeared on stage, clad in a bright red dress. She waited with a self-satisfied expression for the music to begin. However, I was at the back of the room and completely ignored Sissy. Of course, no music started playing, and Sissy was left frozen in her opening pose. It was so comical that I almost burst out laughing, but I managed to keep a straight face by looking down. Eventually, Sissy realized that I wasn't going to play the music and shot me a furious glare. But she quickly retreated to the side of the stage and started the music herself. There, in the middle of the stage, Sissy began to dance. Although her skills were nothing to brag about, Sissy had a smug look on her face. "Come on, everyone, let's give me a round of applause," she called out with a grin. But not a single person clapped. In fact, no one was even watching Sissy. They all continued eating and chatting, completely ignoring her performance. Every single relative in the room was ignoring Sissy. Realizing that something was amiss, Sissy stopped dancing and stood there, dumbfounded. "Hey, everyone? What's going on? I'm dancing here." Still, not a single person even glanced in Sissy's direction. "Hey, honey. I'm going to start over, so tell everyone to clap along," Sissy demanded of Polly. However, Polly ignored her too and continued pouring drinks for the relatives. Finally, Sissy glared at me and snapped, "Why didn't you play the music in the first place? I specifically told you to play it when I dance." But I ignored her as well, continuing to dote on Risa. "Excuse me. Why is everyone ignoring me? What is this? What's going on here?" Sissy shrieked, still wearing her bright red, frilly dress. The dress didn't suit her at all, her makeup was frighteningly heavy, and her appearance was utterly embarrassing. At that moment, Georgie stood up and said in exasperation, "Well, let me answer that for you. Didn't you start this by ignoring Marcia first?" Sissy was taken aback. "What? What do you mean? Don't tell me that just because I ignored your wife, the entire family is now ignoring me?" The relatives all turned their stern gazes on Sissy in unison. "That's ridiculous. Ignoring me like this just because I ignored your wife is so childish," Sissy protested. Polly spoke up. You're the one being childish. You didn't even prepare a seat for Marcia, did you? Do you think that's acceptable? Sissy's face turned beet red as she began to scream. What's the big deal? I never liked this plain Jane from the start. And even though I told her over and over to have a boy, she went and had a girl. Oblivious to the relatives' disgust, Sissy continued. Our family is a respectable lineage of landowners. And yet, this nobody from an ordinary background waltzes in, gets a house built for her, and lives here without a care in the world. It infuriates me. On top of that, she gave birth to a girl who can't even be the family heir. Of course I'd ignore such a useless wife who never listens to a word I say. Sissy glared at me, panting heavily. Georgie spoke up, his voice clear and firm. So you're saying you've been harassing Marcia all this time for those petty reasons? Sissy furrowed her brow. I haven't been harassing anyone. Marcia is just exaggerating everything. You're all being deceived by her. This woman is trying to frame me. But then, voices rose from the relatives. Marcia was helping out with the farm work, even though she was heavily pregnant. When I visited, Sissy was making her mop the floors. More and more testimonies about Sissy's mistreatment poured in from the relatives, and Sissy's face turned ashen. Polly cleared his throat. Marcia suffered in silence so as not to worry Georgie and me. As a father, it pains me to see the woman who married my son being treated so poorly. Sissy, how could you do such a thing? The relatives looked at me with sympathy, and I nodded, my expression anguished. What's the matter with you all, siding with this woman? I'm the one with the authority here. I'll have no problem kicking out a wife who won't listen to your mother-in-law. Sissy's true colors were on full display. As she ranted and raved on stage, someone quietly addressed her. Can a mother-in-law really just kick someone out like that? It was Carol, being pushed in a wheelchair by Olivia. She was the most respected person in the room. What? Aren't you supposed to be in the hospital? Why are you here? Sissy asked, flustered. Carol replied, I was temporarily discharged to attend my great-granddaughter's unveiling ceremony. More importantly, what on earth are you wearing? You're far too old to be dressed like that. It's downright shameful. You look like a monster. The relatives burst into laughter at Carol's words. Sissy's face turned beet red, but Carol continued. I thought you were always out attending lessons, but you were learning flamenco? You're the one who doesn't listen. I specifically told you not to be so hard on Marcia. Sissy hung her head, her face as red as her dress. Marcia is an exemplary wife. She's kind, honest, and has always been good to me. The complete opposite of you, Carol said with a sigh. And it's not just the harassment. You've done something truly unforgivable. Sissy tilted her head in confusion. Huh? Something unforgivable? As Sissy feigned ignorance, Olivia confronted her. Sissy, didn't you tell me that Mom's hospital bills were really high and that I needed to give you $1,000 every month? Sissy's face instantly contorted. The relatives chimed in. Us too. We've been giving her $500. I heard from Marcia that Mom's hospital bills only come to about $800 a month. And my brother has been covering the full amount. It was true. Since I had been taking care of Carol, I was also handling the hospital payments. Polly had given me the money for the hospital fees, and they weren't that high. However, I had witnessed Sissy making the relatives who visited her house pay for the supposed hospital expenses. The reason Olivia's face had turned pale earlier was that she had heard about this from me. Afterwards, Olivia had planned to expose the truth to all the relatives and have them ignore Sissy. That's what led to Sissy's lonely flamenco performance. Olivia glared at Sissy. From what I've heard, you've been collecting thousands of dollars from the relatives every month. What on earth have you been doing with all that money? With all the relatives glaring at her, Sissy was visibly flustered. That's when I spoke up. Sissy, come to think of it, lately you've been carrying luxury brand bags whenever you go to your lessons. Those cost over $10,000, don't they? How did you afford them? Sissy screamed. Mind your own business. But the relatives erupted in outrage. Blamed and glared at by the entire family, Sissy turned deathly pale. Carol spoke sharply. Well, a wife is supposed to obey her mother-in-law, right? I think it's time we kicked you out. Polly, what do you say? Put on the spot by Carol, Polly looked Sissy straight in the eye and declared. You don't do any housework, you're always at your lessons, you harass our son's wife, and on top of that, you swindle money from the relatives to fund your lavish lifestyle. I can't stay married to someone like that. Sissy, I'm divorcing you. Get out of this house. Sissy's face turned ashen as she cried out. Divorce? No way! Why should I have to leave? Georgie chimed in. Of course, we're cutting ties with you too. From now on, stay away from me, Marcia, and Risa. Sissy wailed. Don't say that. She burst into tears, but the relatives all looked at her with cold, unsympathetic eyes. And they, too, declared that they were cutting ties with Sissy. I delivered my final words to Sissy, who was crumpled on the floor in her dress, her makeup running with tears. Well then, Sissy, this is the end of our relationship. Goodbye. I never want to see you again. Afterwards, on Carol's orders, the relatives kicked Sissy out of the venue, still wearing her bright red dress. Polly, thank you so much. I'm sorry things turned out like this, I said, nodding my head. And he replied, I'm sorry I didn't notice sooner. From now on, don't hesitate to come to me with anything. Polly laughed wearily. Our marriage has been on the rocks for a long time now. It was bound to end up like this eventually, so Marcia, don't worry about it. Please continue to take good care of Georgie and Risa. Carol came over to me and lovingly cradled Risa in her arms. Marcia, from now on, focus on your own happiness. I'm sorry for everything up until now. With tears in my eyes, I thanked to my family and relatives. Later, Sissy clung to Polly, pleading, I don't want to get divorced. But Polly wouldn't change his mind. In the end, they decided to bring in lawyers to discuss the terms of the divorce. In the midst of all this, Sissy even called me, begging for help. If you say you forgive me, everything can go back to the way it was. Please, just say it. But I ignored her desperate pleas and blocked her number. The relatives demanded that Sissy return the money she had swindled from them, and she reportedly sold all her brand name goods to come up with the cash. Even then, it wasn't enough, so she apparently had to take out loans. Afterwards, Polly and Carol kicked Sissy out of the house. The fact that they gave her a decent divorce settlement was perhaps Polly's final act of kindness. With nowhere else to go, Sissy tried to return to her parents' home in the countryside. However, after hearing about the situation from Carol and Polly, Sissy's dad was furious and declared that he was disowning her. He turned Sissy away at the door. In the end, Sissy ended up in a rundown apartment that looked like it might collapse at any moment. Having never worked a day in her life, she now had to take part-time jobs to pay off her debts. But with her personality, she quickly became disliked at her workplaces and couldn't hold down a job for long. At one point, Sissy even sent a letter to Georgie begging for help, but he promptly tossed it in the trash. Sissy, who had once lived a life of luxury as the wife of a wealthy landowner, indulging in all the lessons she wanted, had fallen spectacularly from grace. From now on, she would likely live out the rest of her days in poverty and loneliness. But I felt no sympathy for her whatsoever. As for me, I'm working hard to raise Risa together with Georgie. Carol was safely discharged from the hospital and is now living with Polly, but I kindly offered to help with the housework. However, Polly declined my offer and hired a housekeeper instead. Thanks to her, I get to eat delicious meals every day. Although they're not quite as good as Marcia's cooking, Polly said with a laugh. Olivia and the other relatives have been very kind to me as well. That's why I voluntarily go to help out with the farm work and make an effort to maintain good relationships with the extended family. Carol absolutely adores Risa, and I often bring her to visit. I hope Carol, who has always been on my side, will continue to live a long and healthy life. By the way, I'm currently pregnant with our second child, a baby boy. Georgie, Polly, Carol, and even Risa are all overjoyed and can't wait to meet the new addition to our family. From now on, I want to cherish my loved ones and live a peaceful life surrounded by my family. Seems like a son's wife is just an outsider, huh? No need to waste fancy coffee on a stranger like you. We'll enjoy it ourselves. With that, Emil grinned wickedly. Well, if that's how it's going to be, so be it. This is a game. A doubles game between Emil Elizabeth and Sale Felicia versus me and my husband. Strategy is key in a game. Just you watch. So, I cheerfully responded, gladly, with a big smile. My name is Diana. A 32-year-old working mother. Married to Elliot for 5 years. The day to build our own house has finally arrived. Building a house has been our goal since the beginning of our marriage. We visited various houses, took our time deciding, and diligently saved up. When our child was born 2 years into the marriage, our plans hit a snag. But Elliot and I persevered, and finally, we reached our savings goal. However, actually building the house was harder than imagined. A house is a big purchase. You can't just buy another if something goes wrong. We considered factors like transportation convenience, shopping accessibility, a child-friendly environment, and the reputation of local schools. And whether it was an easy commute for Elliot, a full-time employee. So many things to consider, even just finding the right location was tough. We eventually settled near the in-laws' house. It wasn't out of preference, but because the location was good. It wasn't about living together, but about bearing with minor annoyances. Once the land was decided, it was time to order the house. This was another challenge. Building our ideal home, with budget at the forefront, was full of issues. We progressed, step by step. But complicating matters further were Elizabeth and Felicia. For some reason, they kept interfering. When we mentioned building a house, both suddenly became interested. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled, and Felicia, in her late 20s and single, was excited. Where will it be built? Which home builder are you using? What will the interior look like? They asked all sorts of questions. I tried to brush them off. But then they somehow found out about our meetings with the home builder and the architect and started crashing them. How do they even find these things out? Sorry, it was me who talked. Elliot apologized. So you're the culprit. Even glaring at him, it was too late. If the kitchen storage is too little, Elizabeth would say, having a wooden deck is essential. Felicia would add, somebody, please sew these two's mouths shut. If you're doing barbecues in the garden, a big sink would be useful. A walk-in closet should be bigger, too. The windows should definitely be double-glazed for soundproofing. We'll need a bedroom for Mom and Dad, right? Shouldn't there be a room for Felicia to stay in too? One after another, wait, hold on. Why do we need a bedroom for the parents-in-law? And what's this about a room for Felicia? Ignoring Elliot and me, Elizabeth and Felicia, with almost a smirk, keep butting in, making the architect give a wry smile. After they left, I had to confirm with Elliot. I hoped not, but I had this bad feeling. Hey, we're not planning to live together, right? From their manner of speaking, I couldn't shake the feeling they were plotting just that. I hesitantly asked Elliot, who shook his head in a hurry. No way! Dad wouldn't think of leaving the house he's used to. And Felicia's old enough, even if our parents' house was gone, there's no way she'd move in with us. That's what I thought. Elliot denied it, but my anxiety didn't disappear. Somehow ignoring Elizabeth and Felicia's interference, we decided on the design and started construction. And a year later, our dream house was finally completed. It was tough, long, and oh so annoying. Lying on the living room sofa after moving in, I closed my eyes and recalled all the hardships. It was educational and fun looking at various properties. Hey Mom, is it okay to put my cup here? Why not? Let's use this corner of the cupboard for mine and Felicia's things. There were times, pointed out by the architect, when I felt disheartened by the difference between the ideal and the reality. The best room on the second floor has to be sunny, right? I'll take the biggest one? Yeah, I'm getting old, a small room would be tiring. Let's go with that. I really wanted to plant a viburnum in the garden. But who knew I'd have to research the type of soil, too. Okay, then I'll call the moving company. Thanks. You're reliable, Felicia. And then there's, wait, what's with these people swarming my house? Elizabeth and Felicia. Why are you meddling with things inside the house? We're just moving things to make it more livable. Felicia replied nonchalantly to my question. My clothes, still in boxes, were pushed to a corner, and somehow Felicia's clothes were making their way into the closet. Elizabeth too. This new house is nice. It's exciting, said, making herself coffee and starting to eat cookies. No, crumbs on the floor. Hey, both of you, stop doing whatever you please. This is our house, you know. I shouted, panicked, as the two behaved as if they were the ones who would be living here. But at that moment, the atmosphere changed. What are you talking about? Felicia said. Huh? As I tilted my head in confusion, Felicia pointed and continued. This house was built by my brother Elliot. Elizabeth nodded in agreement. That's right. It's my son Elliot's house. What's wrong with parents or siblings living here? There's plenty wrong with it. The worry I had since before the house was built seemed to be turning into reality. Could it be these two? Then that settles it. Felicia and I will take the big room on the second floor. The room next to it will be Elliot's, no problem, right? There's a big problem. The big room is for me and my husband, and the next room is for our son. What are you talking about? Elliot and the grandson can just share. What Elizabeth said made no sense. No, it's too small for Elliot, me, and our son. Elliot and the grandson can manage. I'm here too, you know. What are you talking about? That's when Elizabeth looked at me with a sinister smile. Listen here. This house was built by Elliot, who's related by blood. That means it's the right of his blood relatives to live here. You're just an outsider, a stranger. You should just sleep on that sofa over there, she said, pointing to the sofa. You're kidding, right? Elizabeth and Felicia seem serious about living in this house. My precious home is about to be occupied by this alien mother-daughter duo. Worried, I consulted Elliot that night. Luckily, they hadn't stayed over yet, but since they were talking about movers, they might seriously start living here soon. Hey, are you really going to give them the biggest room? No way. Of course not. When I told Elliot about today, he frowned. But they're talking about turning our room into Elizabeth and Felicia's room? That's a bit much. Elliot, looking troubled, tilted his head and talked with Elizabeth and Felicia the next day. And I thought they understood. What, Elizabeth? What are you doing? We're moving in. They didn't get it at all. During the day, when our son was at daycare and Elliot was at work, Elizabeth arrived with movers and started bringing in boxes. Moving in! Really, such an inflexible daughter-in-law. Why should we have to settle for a small room? That's practically ungrateful. After all, a son's wife is just a stranger. Didn't Elliot tell you anything? He did. No to the big room. What a narrowed-down version of the story. Living in this house at all is the problem. I was stunned as they moved everything in. The space intended for our son's room was now occupied by heaps of cardboard boxes, and then Felicia arrived. Oh no, it's a small room. Felicia! What on earth? Hi, Diana, let's get along from now on. Since it's the joyous first day of moving in, let's have a luxurious dinner, okay? No. Ignoring me, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared into their room and closed the door. Oh, great. Due to Elizabeth and Felicia's surprise invasion, our new home was now occupied by the enemy. Suddenly, I was living with the occupying force. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, all my responsibility, which I wasn't happy about. And them using our stuff without permission was upsetting. But I couldn't really tell them not to use things since we were living together. As I was thinking this, Felicia took out a bottle of wine. That was something I bought for myself, but before I could say anything, she drank it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elizabeth generously using my expensive lotion. That's expensive stuff. I ordered various things for the luxurious dinner, and of course, I had to pay. Elizabeth and Felicia ate all the delivered dinner. I didn't get a single bite. Elizabeth and Felicia always took showers before me, my husband, and our son. And they always left the hot water running. They never contributed to the utility bills. And they watched TV late into the night at high volume. The house was a mess, dirty everywhere. I'm always positive. Gradually, the absurdity became amusing. I decided to enjoy it. This was a hospitality game with Elizabeth and Felicia. Getting angry is bad for the skin, after all. So, let the hospitality game begin. One holiday. During a day off when Elliot and our son were home, Felicia woke up scratching her head and sat at the dining table. And she asked me, I'm so sleepy. Didn't get enough sleep. Is there coffee? Still sleepy after sleeping till noon. Then Elizabeth woke up. And similarly, Diana, make some coffee, she said, so I stood up. This is a game, a game. I win if I impress them. With that thought, I opened the cabinet with the coffee. Let's see, there should be the instant coffee I bought yesterday. It was a bit more expensive than usual. I showed it with a smug face, but they both looked disappointed. Don't they like it? Then Felicia stood up and started searching the cabinet. And found it, she said, taking out coffee beans. Those are from a gift Elliot got from his boss. It's not just any coffee, it's premium. We don't drink coffee from beans at home, so it was kind of wasted on us. Misunderstanding my expression, Felicia smirked. What, hiding such good beans, Diana? You're so mean. Eh? Elizabeth nodded at Felicia's words. Really? You don't want us, who are not blood-related, to drink delicious coffee? You're definitely an outsider. Such an outsider doesn't deserve this luxury coffee. What? We'll drink this gifted premium coffee. An outsider like you is fine with instant coffee, lol. And Elizabeth laughed. This is not making any sense. But there's no interpreter. For me, it's actually a relief that they're using up the bean coffee. Seeing Elliot nodding in agreement. Sure, I'd be glad to, I said with a smile. She probably didn't expect that kind of response. What? Elizabeth looked surprised. Ignoring that, I took the coffee beans from Felicia. All right, I'll make some delicious coffee now. Okay then. Felicia seemed puzzled by my smile. There I was, rolling up my sleeves, ready to go. Let the game begin, making delicious coffee. But when I opened the bag and saw the beans, I was a bit stumped. I called Elliot, who was looking worried, for a consultation. He came over as I gestured.
What's up? Hey! How do you use coffee beans?
I've never made coffee from beans before. I asked Elliot, but I don't know either. He replied. Now we're in trouble. Our game of making the best coffee has hit a snag right from the start. Should we look it up online? No, that's the last resort. What to do then? Just have to wring out whatever little knowledge we have.
I think you have to grind them into a powder,
said Elliot. Okay, that makes sense.
But we don't have a mill or a blender. What about a mortar?
It got lost during the move. After some thought,
maybe it's fine just to use the beans as they are?
I strongly agreed with Elliot's suggestion. So, let's give it a try. Beans as they are, into the coffee maker's filter. Okay, pour hot water over this.
Look, Diana, it's getting color. Really? So it's a success.
The color is super light, but surely that's what premium coffee looks like. Encouraged, we continued pouring hot water.
It's done. We've made premium coffee.
We proudly presented it to Elizabeth and Felicia. Elizabeth and Felicia sighed deeply at us.
Finally done? How long did it take you to? Seriously. Because of a stranger son's wife, time is wasted. It's so light.
Elizabeth smirked as she criticized me, then screamed when she saw the coffee.
What? It's so light. Is this tea?
Felicia frowned at the coffee too. We, the couple, shook our heads in disbelief.
Genuine premium coffee, extracted from high-quality beans. It's probably light in color because it's high class. We have milk and sugar if you need, but you should try it straight first.
With a musical note, I cheerfully pushed the cups towards them.
But... Please, go ahead. Elliot, is this really premium coffee? Yeah, the finest kind Diana and I made. Try it.
After being cheerfully encouraged by both of us, they reluctantly tasted the coffee. Immediately after.
So weak. Disgusting.
Elizabeth and Felicia both exclaimed.
What is this? This is not coffee. What is this? It's definitely weird. Diana, how did you make this coffee?
I just poured hot water over the beans.
What?
Was something wrong? I looked at Elliot, but he just shrugged. Weird, I just made it normally.
Too high class for your taste? Huh? I am a woman who suits high class stuff. It's this coffee that's odd. Ah, good. Then please drink it all. No, but I mean... Here you go.
If high-end stuff suits them, they'll surely get used to it while drinking. So, there's only one thing to do. I pushed the coffee cup to Felicia's mouth and made her drink forcefully. Meanwhile, Elliot, calling it filial piety, was encouraging Elizabeth to drink. Now, this is getting fun. The daily game is enjoyable.
Elizabeth, shall we clean your room? Hey, at least knock first. Sorry. Since you always enter our room without knocking, I thought it wasn't necessary. Felicia, all this stuff on the floor is trash, right? I'll throw it all away. That's a premium bag. Elizabeth, since you said the seasoning was too light yesterday, I made it stronger today. Too strong. Not just strong, it's spicy.
Felicia, it seems you like my lotion, but I have something better. It has a unique smell, but it's good for your skin.
Smelly. What is this? Don't put it on my face.
The game of pleasing them was getting more and more fun. I continued to serve them with increasing enthusiasm. They cried with joy, so I win. Elliot was also doing various things, but as I spend more time with them, I have the advantage. Then one day, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared. Huh? Then I received a call from Fael. Oh right, Freddie from the in-laws' house. How has he been? Enjoying a carefree solo life? That's good. According to Freddie,
Elizabeth and Felicia came back crying. What happened? Elizabeth's lips are swollen, and Felicia's skin is shiny but smells terrible,
he said. They must have been so happy they went to report to Freddie. But they shouldn't think it's over yet. There's a barbecue in the garden tonight. I'm setting up a trampoline for Elizabeth and Felicia to enjoy, so I'll go pick them up now, I announced and went to fetch them from the in-laws' house. For some reason, they ran away, and a chase began. Eventually, I easily caught elderly Elizabeth and Felicia, who boasted about knowing all the hiding spots since childhood, was found by Elliot.
Stop it! Stop it, please!
They cried with joy, no need to be shy. A few days later, movers suddenly arrived and took Elizabeth and Felicia's stuff away. Why? I wanted to show more hospitality, I said to them hiding behind Freddie at the in-laws' house, and they shook their heads vigorously with pale faces. Elliot looked genuinely disappointed. Hey Elliot, seems like our hospitality wasn't enough for Elizabeth and them. Is that so? Maybe we need to study more. Hearing this conversation, Elizabeth and Felicia began to tremble. After that, Elizabeth and Felicia stopped coming to our house. Even when I greet them in the neighborhood,
Hello,
they run away immediately. Well, it's fine. Peaceful days returned. We remodeled their room into our son's room, and were even talking about having another child. Feeling a bit unfulfilled now the game is over, unnoticed Freddie stood beside me. The real ditzy ones never realize they're ditzy, do they? And muttered. My name is Kate. I'm a 48-year-old homemaker. In this day and age, some might think being a homemaker is enviable. But I'm not the kind of homemaker who lives in luxury on my husband's earnings. Ben, should I help you wipe down? I'm sorry. Ben, who's in his mid-60s, had a stroke a decade ago when he was still full of energy. Since then, he's been bedridden. All this time, I've been caring for him. We used to worry about not being able to have children when we were younger. But now I see it as a blessing that allows me to devote myself to caregiving. Life is strange, isn't it? Ben's body doesn't move as he wishes, but his mind is clear. Maybe that's why. He always seems to feel sorry towards me. But I wish he wouldn't. I don't find this life too burdensome. Sure, caregiving support services have increased compared to the past, and it's not like I can't take a break at all. But I started caregiving in my 30s, and now I'm in my 40s. I can't deny that my physical strength isn't what it used to be. So, naturally, I wish for some support. From my husband.
Could you give me a hand?
And then, I'm busy right now. Tom, my husband said. I might understand if he were actually working. But how is lying on the sofa and fiddling with his mobile phone busy?
If you're just looking at your phone, help out. It's your dad, after all.
I'm supporting by working, aren't I? Let me rest at least on my days off. Saying that, my husband frowned irritably and stood up to leave the room. It's always the same. He doesn't lift a finger. Even if he can't help with caregiving, it would be nice if he at least took care of himself. My husband, hand on the door, turned back and said,
Oh yeah, I have a business trip for the next 3 days.
Get everything ready. Again? Can't you at least? I'm busy. You should do that much as a wife. Shouting, my husband left the room. Does preparing himself challenge his pride? We're supposed to support each other as a married couple. How did it come to this? No choice. I'll get some help after the helper comes. I sighed and kept staring at the door through which my husband had left. Is that boy off on a business trip again? The night my husband left for his trip, as I was drinking coffee, Linda showed up. Linda, who can't get by without her cane due to mobility issues, is otherwise sharp. While Ben was sleeping, I took a break and helped Linda sit down by taking her hand and guiding her to a chair. After taking a sip of the freshly brewed coffee and exhaling, Linda said with a hint of sadness, "He's always away on business trips several times a month. I wonder if that's really the case." Well, who knows? Linda and I are probably thinking the same thing. Harboring the same suspicions. Infidelity. That word flickers through my mind. But I deliberately don't voice it. What difference does it make if I find out about my husband's infidelity? He'll surely deny it, and gathering evidence would cost money and effort. But I don't have the luxury to deal with that right now. My affection for my husband is almost non-existent. And naturally, his affection towards me is the same. But having lost my own parents early, my in-laws are as precious to me as my own. I can't abandon them. After all, my husband does contribute financially to the household, so maybe it's better to leave his issues be. After a long life of caregiving, I've given up. It wasn't always like this. My husband used to be kind to me when we were distressed about not being able to have children. He used to be dutiful to his parents. But as soon as the caregiving for his parents began, he changed as if he were a different person. Acting on his own whims, almost as if he was single. He started leaving home frequently, claiming he was on business trips. He grew colder, not just towards his parents, but towards me as well. "You're such an unattractive woman. Eating with you ruins my appetite." After being bluntly told that, we started eating separately. Now, my husband eats alone, while I feed Ben and share meals with Linda. "I don't want to sleep in the same room." Since he said that, I've been sleeping on the living room sofa. But the kind and grateful words from my caring in-laws somehow kept me going. Just when I was feeling the distance from my husband, another troubling issue arose. The money my husband was bringing home decreased. Despite discussing various problems, he stubbornly insisted his salary had decreased. But I knew he was lying. I happened to see his pay stub. To my surprise, his salary had actually increased. I wondered if he had received a promotion, but that wasn't the important part. The problem was that he was lying and reducing the money for the household. "That's quite a sum for your parents' taxi, fares to the hospital, and hiring helpers. Our living expenses are..." What? Managing with the money provided is a homemaker's duty. If you can't do that, you're failing as a homemaker. If you can't even manage that, what value do you have? No matter how much I pleaded, my husband wouldn't listen. Seeing this, my in-laws seemed apologetically again. They even offered their meager pensions to help with the living expenses. Feeling sorry, I struggled to make ends meet with the money my husband gave. As a result, our meals became vegetable-centered and modest. My in-laws claimed to prefer such meals, but my husband would say, "How can I eat such plain food?" And he started dining out every night. Consequently, the money he brought home decreased even more. A vicious cycle that also lessened his time at home. And in proportion, my spirit dwindled away. On that particular day, Ben's condition suddenly worsened. A stroke had recurred. In no time at all, Ben passed away. Initially, I was stunned, but then tears wouldn't stop flowing. Linda and I hugged and cried in front of Ben, who looked as if he were merely sleeping. At that time, my husband was, yet again, on a business trip. When I finally calmed down a bit and called him,
Hello! Who's this?
a woman answered the phone, to my shock. My husband was in the midst of an affair.
Hey, don't just pick up like that.
I heard my husband's voice, sounding flustered as he snatched the phone away. Normally, I'd be seething with anger in such a situation. But having just lost Ben, my heart felt numb, and I was surprisingly calm. Without confronting him about the affair, I simply informed him that Ben had passed away.
Oh, really?
His response was disconcertingly brief. Can someone be this indifferent about their own father's death? To me, my husband seemed as alien as a being from another planet. No, that's an insult to aliens. Even in space, I believe there's some sense of parent-child bond. Throughout the funeral, my husband maintained a detached demeanor, merely going through the motions of being the chief mourner. Relatives consoled the grieving Linda. Meanwhile, the actual son seemed to spend most of the time fiddling with his mobile phone and yawning. Everyone looked at my husband with disdain. Because of him, Ben's funeral, whom I dearly loved, became a dismal affair. A month passed since then. Between dealing with the aftermath of Ben's death and caring for Linda's mental health, time flew by. My husband was in an exceptionally good mood today. Because today was the day Ben's will was to be disclosed. Ben had prepared a notarized will, which doesn't require court verification. It was kept in the lawyer's office. Today, Linda was to bring it from the office and open it. Normally, one would assume the inheritors to be Linda, the wife, and my husband, the only son. I wondered if there was really a need for a will. Could there be a secret child? With bated breath, I watched the proceedings, reminding myself that as a DIL, I had no rights to the inheritance. The lawyer, called in for this day, along with relatives of both in-laws, were present as witnesses. As everyone watched, the lawyer opened and read the will. That was, Linda was to inherit the house and land, and half of all other assets. That was expected. But what followed was shocking. The remaining half wasn't left to my husband, the son.
What? Kate and I are to inherit the remaining half equally?
My husband stood up, shouting in disbelief. Indeed. The will unexpectedly left part of the inheritance to me. Stunned, I watched as my husband pointed at me and yelled furiously.
Why does my wife have to take the inheritance? I'm the real son. Everything, apart from Mom's share, should obviously come to me. But the will states, I don't care. It's invalid. Invalid.
My husband screamed at the lawyer. I was speechless, shocked by the sudden turn of events. But what my husband said next left me completely astounded.
I was the one who mostly took care of Dad. She didn't do much. What?
What is this man saying? I already knew he was a liar, but this lie was too much. He took care of Ben mostly? Who could say such a thing? I couldn't stay silent anymore and was about to speak when.
What are you talking about? Have some shame, you foolish son.
The shout didn't come from me. Unexpectedly, it was Linda. A dramatic soundtrack seemed to play as Linda's face filled the screen. Or at least, that's how it felt. Then, a close-up of my husband's shocked face. Silence fell over the room. Linda, usually so quiet and never raising her voice, had taken us all by surprise. My husband, stunned by her uncharacteristic fierceness, was speechless. In the midst of this, Linda continued.
Mostly took care of Ben, you say? Which mouth of yours is saying that? You do nothing but play with your phone or watch TV every day. You don't even eat at home. You barely contribute any money to the household. And to top it off, you lie about business trips to cheat. You really don't deserve a cent of the inheritance. What? Is that true? Reacting to Linda's words were Ben's brothers. Strong-looking men due to their construction business. Confronted by these imposing figures, my husband seemed even smaller. Eh? What do you mean? Mom, I might not have been home much, but the affair accusation is just baseless. Don't make random claims without any evidence. My husband was stuttering and sweating in panic. Without missing a beat, Linda produced a large envelope. Where did that come from? Did she have it hidden? I hadn't noticed it at all. Do you know what this is? It's filled with evidence of your affairs. I didn't think Kate, who worked so hard taking care of Ben, would have the means. So Ben and I hired a detective. Be prepared. With that, Linda scattered the contents of the envelope. Ah! After my husband's scream, the relatives reacted. What is this? Ugh, that's disgusting. Really, my eyes feel dirty now. The reaction from the relatives was one of disappointment. The contents were numerous embarrassing photos of my husband and his mistress. What are they even doing outdoors? I didn't know my husband had such hobbies. Never thought I'd discover such hidden sides of my husband after 20 years of marriage. Like the relatives, I was appalled. Shame on you! Doing such disgraceful things. Claiming you took care of Ben, saying Kate did nothing. Insisting the inheritance is all yours, how dare you say such things? You shameless, unfilial son. Apologize to Kate. It's not like that, this is wrong. It's not wrong, you foolish son. Linda, calm down, please. You'll burst a blood vessel. It's too early to follow Ben. Perhaps it was Linda's towering rage that allowed me, the one who should be most upset, to remain calm. Linda, please calm down. Breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale. That foolish son. After some deep breathing, Linda calmed down a bit. But her anger was far from subsiding. Seeing her like this made me start to laugh. Kate? Surprised, Linda looked at me as I suddenly burst into laughter. I smiled at Linda and then hugged her. Thank you so much, Linda. Kate? For getting angry on my behalf, for conducting such an investigation for me. I really appreciate it. Of course. You are my precious daughter, after all. Daughter. I never realized how happy being called that could make me. Since Ben's passing, I've become quite teary, and once again, tears welled up. But I can't spend all my time crying. After stepping away from Linda, I wiped away my tears roughly and looked at my husband. You. What? Let's get a divorce. Fine by me, I'll gladly do it. I desperately suppressed another wave of laughter and then confirmed with my husband. So, about the will, about the inheritance? All right, I accept Dad's will. I looked at the lawyer, who slowly nodded. The lawyer was designated as the executor of the will. I was sure he would handle the following procedures smoothly. Taking a moment to breathe, I then moved on to another matter. Shall we begin? My statement was met with nods from Linda and the attending relatives. My husband was the only one who didn't understand. What more is there to discuss? To my clueless husband, I said with a smile. It's obvious, isn't it? The compensation claim for your affair. What? Why did he think it would all end here? With evidence of his infidelity right in front of us,
It wasn't going to be just a divorce and goodbye. Don't joke! Compensation on top of the inheritance. What a greedy woman you are! Coming from someone who pushed the care of his parents onto his wife and had affairs. Really, the nerve. Don't joke is my line. We have a lawyer here, and plenty of witnesses, so why don't we have a thorough discussion? I just remembered something I have to do. What could be more important than what we're doing now? Don't run away, you fool! Before I could grab his hand, someone else grabbed my husband by the neck. It was Ben's brother, hardened by his construction work. Behind him stood Ben's equally formidable brother. They nodded in agreement. Muscles really do have an impact. After that, under the watchful eyes of the Muscle brothers, other relatives, and Linda, my husband couldn't flee. He had no choice but to stay and discuss until everything was settled. Today's another beautiful day. Looking up, the sky was cloudless and clear. Half a year had passed since then. Thanks to the lawyer, the inheritance proceedings went very smoothly. The divorce was finalized, and I was enjoying living alone. I really wanted to live with Linda, but now that we were strangers due to the divorce, Linda stubbornly refused, not wanting to make me her caregiver again. As a result, Linda moved into a nursing home with the money from selling the house. I visit her once a week. It seems like a wonderful place, and Linda seems happy. In the end, I feel like this was the best outcome. The house was sold. That means, essentially, the house was gone. As for my ex-husband, who was practically kicked out, well, according to the will, he received his share of the inheritance. He was overjoyed at first, but then his face turned pale. Why? Because the inheritance had almost vanished. The reason goes without saying. Compensation, of course. My husband's inheritance was gone. Not enough from the inheritance alone, so he also had to pay from his savings. As a result, my husband ended up penniless. And more than that, it seems his affair became known at his company. Particularly among the female staff, he was given the cold shoulder and became quite isolated, leading to a series of mistakes, it seems. That woman, she's my boss, but didn't defend me properly, he was saying over the phone. And it turns out that this boss was a woman and, astonishingly, the mistress was his boss. Maybe that explains the mysterious salary raise. But as soon as the affair came to light, he was dumped by the mistress, who also faced a demotion due to the affair and other ethics violations. I made sure she paid compensation too. That's only right. It's your fault I kept making mistakes and got fired. He tried to blame it all on me. But that's not my problem, is it? You got used to caring for Ben, so looking after me should be easy for you, he said, but no, that's entirely different. I couldn't respond with anything but laughter. So, I blocked his calls. I don't know what became of my husband after that. And I don't want to know. To forget about that foolish husband, I started working, and it turned out to be refreshing and enjoyable. The world is so much broader than I thought. A sense of excitement for a bright future welled up in me unknowingly. Gazing up at the contrails stretching straight across the blue sky, I squinted my eyes.
Hold on a second. You're going way too rough. You like it this way, don't you? She never does this for you, does she? Please don't say that. Call me by my name. Just like you always do. I was standing right outside the bedroom door. I quickly realized that the person with Charles was my own sister, Lily. I felt a surge of anger rise inside me, and I had to pinch my hand to keep myself from barging in. Stay calm first. I pulled out my cell phone and decided to record their conversation. Never in my wildest dreams did I think Lily would be the one. The first sign that something was off was when I got home. I'm back. There was a pair of women's shoes in the hallway that I didn't recognize. It was immediately clear that Charles had brought someone home. Then I heard voices coming from the bedroom upstairs, so I moved toward the door. Their voices were echoing throughout the house, clearly getting more intense. But why come to this house today? Because it makes it more exciting, don't you think? Yeah, I guess so. But usually it's at the family house. We've been careful not to get caught before. But well, she's too clueless to notice anything anyway. You're right about that. She would never imagine we're doing this. She's a fool. It finally made sense why I hadn't noticed their relationship sooner. I never imagined they were meeting at my parents' house. Still, I kept recording, thinking this would be solid proof. I wondered what our parents would think when they heard this. That was the only thing keeping me sane at this point. I thought about barging in, but my feet wouldn't move. Why not? If I went in, I'd catch them in the act. Maybe deep down, I couldn't handle seeing it for myself. So when are you going to give me a baby? Come on, you know that's too risky. Your husband will find out. Don't worry, I'll sleep with him afterward, and he'll never know. He's so oblivious. You're a terrible wife. Not as bad as you. Listening to this conversation for so long was making my head pound and my stomach turn. I couldn't take it anymore. That's when I decided to call out to my husband, Charles. Where are you? As soon as they realized I was there, I heard the window open in a panic. They were probably trying to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst thing they could have done. Because today, of all days, it was snowing heavily. They really messed up this time. I slowly stepped into the room, glancing around at the clothes carelessly strewn across the floor. They had run outside, completely naked. When I looked out, I saw them crouching, trying to hide in the corner. I immediately locked the door behind them. Then I started thinking about what kind of punishment I should give them. I couldn't believe how excited I was feeling. My name is Layla. I'm 34 years old and work as a sales rep for a local company. I live with my husband, Charles, who's 3 years older than me. I met Charles while I was on a sales visit. In my mid-20s, I had just switched jobs and was still getting used to the work. I remember how kind he was, even to someone as inexperienced as me. Thank you very much. Oh, no problem. Keep up the good work. Yes, I will. At the time, I just thought he was a nice guy, nothing more. It took a while before we crossed paths again, but it felt like fate when we did. I have one sister, Lily, and it turns out Charles was one of her classmates. Lily got married 3 years ago, and Charles happened to be one of the guests at her wedding. Do you remember me? Oh right, from the sales call. Exactly. I didn't expect to run into you here. So what's your connection to Lily? Lily and I were classmates in high school and college. Wow, I didn't know that. As we chatted, Lily, the star of the day, walked over to us. Wait, you two know each other? Well, kind of. We worked together on a project. Yay, it wasn't a big deal. But thanks to that, I was able to close a deal. That was your own skill, trust me. As we kept going back and forth, Lily started laughing. What's so funny? I was just thinking, you two make a great match. Don't tease me like that. I'm actually kind of serious. Thanks to Lily's pushing, Charles and I ended up exchanging contact information. I figured Charles must have been a bit annoyed by Lily's persistence, just like I was. But about a week after we exchanged numbers, he called me. Hello, sorry to call you out of the blue. It's no problem. What's up? Oh well, I was wondering. Yes, would you like to grab dinner sometime? Sure, I answered without thinking. Great, I'll call you again soon. With that, he hung up. I didn't dislike the idea, but it felt too late to back out now. Honestly, I didn't have much experience with dating, so I wasn't sure what to do. Even though it was just dinner, I couldn't help but feel nervous. At the time, I was still living with my parents, so I decided to ask Lily for advice. Even though Lily was married, she had chosen to stay at home and live with our parents. Wow, he asked you out. That's great. Well, it's not that it's great. I just don't have any experience with this kind of thing. Then it's good you asked me for advice. Lily had always been popular. Even back in school, she used to bring different guys home. I thought she'd give me good advice, but I was wrong. As we got older, she calmed down a bit, but she still enjoyed forcing me, the shy one, into doing things. And I can't even count how many times she's made me cry. Layla, just relax and enjoy the ride. As long as I'm here, you don't need to worry. So what should I do? How about seduction? Charles is weak for that kind of thing. Wait a minute. I'm just going for dinner. What are you talking about? Dinner's never just dinner. And the ridiculous advice kept coming from Lily. But that wasn't the only problem. Our parents spoiled Lily, which gave her free rein. Compared to me, who was harder to handle, they favored Lily, who always knew how to charm them. I wanted to move out right after I graduated from college, but they wouldn't let me. They didn't care much, but they still wanted to keep me close. Then the day of the dinner finally arrived. Good luck. Thanks, I'll be back later. In the end, the dinner went well, I think. It was fun, and way better than feeling awkward at home. I had a great time. Can we meet again sometime? If you're okay with me, I'd love to. I'm glad. Honestly, I'm not that experienced with women. If you say that, I'm even less experienced with men. No way, I've got you beat. No, seriously, I do. As we bantered back and forth, we both burst out laughing. It had been a long time since I'd had this much fun. It felt natural for us to grow closer and eventually start dating. But there was one person who wasn't happy about it. Lily. Despite all her teasing and encouragement. Wait, you're actually dating him? Yay, we are. I can't believe it. Did you follow my advice? There's no way I could have done that. How did this happen? I found out why Lily seemed so bent on sabotaging things from an unexpected source. Really? Is that true? That source was her husband, Thomas. Yay, it's true. You know Lily and I met in college, right? Yes, she told me about that. Well, I also became friends with Charles back then. Apparently, she had a crush on him in high school. But he had a girlfriend at the time, so nothing happened. Why are you telling me this now? I overheard her talking about it recently. But don't get me wrong. Lily's not all bad. Thomas had a sad look on his face. He really did love Lily. And yet, here she was, still hung up on an old crush. This situation was deeper and more complicated than I had imagined. And it was only going to get worse. Although Charles and I were officially together, Lily wouldn't stop prying into my personal life. She would show up in my room, asking question after question, until she got an answer she liked. And what else? What do you mean, what else? Like, have you gone to a hotel or something? I don't know. That was my small act of defiance. After that, Lily seemed to settle down. By this point, Charles and I had been together for about a year. And then, on my birthday. Happy birthday. Thank you. Here's your present from me. What is it? Inside the small box he handed me was a beautiful ring. Is this? I want you to marry me. I'm so happy. Yes, of course, I'll marry you. I promise I'll make you happy. With that, I was over the moon. It wasn't just about being with Charles. The thought of finally getting away from my parents' house was exhilarating. I couldn't wait to tell both families, so we made the rounds. Charles's parents welcomed me with open arms, even more than I had imagined. But the real issue was with my own family. So Layla's finally getting married. I think Charles will be a great addition to the family. Thank you. Even my usually indifferent parents seemed happy for me. But of course, Lily wasn't going to stay quiet. Wait, you're not going to live here. Lily, what are you talking about? You and Thomas already live here. We don't have any extra space, and it's just not practical. Then why don't we renovate or something? There are plenty of options. Don't be ridiculous. We can't do that. Lily's panic was obvious. Well, that was part of my plan. Lily became desperate to find ways to keep me at the house. Enough, Lily. It's not up to us to decide. Stay out of this. Seriously. Even Thomas looked taken aback by Lily's outburst. Anyway, we're going to find our own place. Okay, that sounds good. That's the plan. So we'll be moving soon. If that's what you've decided, then it's fine. Thank you. I'll never forget the look of frustration on Lily's face when we moved out. Finally, I had left the house and was enjoying some peace. We found a cozy, affordable house in the next town over. I never realized how happy I could be living with someone I loved. Even though we lived apart, we still gathered at my parents' house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. It had only been a few months, but it felt strange to be away for so long, and I was a bit nervous. I'm home. Welcome back. It's great to see you. Yeah, where's Lily? Oh, she's out shopping. Ashley, it's been a while. Charles, you're looking well. Come on in. We sat down in the living room, and my mom immediately brought out more snacks than we could possibly eat. There's no way we can finish all this. Come on, it's been a while since you've been home. Yay, but it's only been a few months. No need to be shy. I wasn't used to this kind of attention since Lily was always the favorite. Just then, Lily and Thomas came back from shopping. Layla, you're here. Yay, it's been a while. I greeted her, but she ignored me and headed straight to the kitchen. Charles, long time no see. Have you gained some weight? Yeah, Layla's cooking is too good. Glad to hear you're doing well. Thanks, I am. We all sat together, chatting and drinking tea. But Lily, who was usually the center of attention, was strangely quiet. After about an hour, my mom remembered something. Did you pick up the usual from the bakery downtown? Oh no, I forgot. Really? You need to be more careful. But it's not like we really need it. What are you talking about? It's a family tradition. What are we going to do now? Do you think there's still time to go get it? That's when Charles spoke up. I'll go. I've got the car, and I don't mind. Oh, I feel bad for asking. No, really. It's no trouble. I'll be back soon. All right then, thank you. As Charles was getting ready to leave, Lily suddenly decided to go with him. It was my mistake, so I should go too. Besides, Charles doesn't know what to buy. Let's go. She grabbed Charles by the arm and pulled him out the door. Watching them leave, my dad let out a long sigh. What's wrong? Lately, she's been off. She forgets things, and she just seems unmotivated. Lily, who had once been the golden child, was now becoming a burden. Even her husband, Thomas, seemed tired. It seemed that since I moved out, our roles had reversed. An awkward silence filled the room. The bakery was only about a 10-minute drive from the house. They'd been gone for too long. It was Mom who first noticed. They're taking a long time, aren't they? Yay, it's been over an hour by now. An uneasy feeling started creeping up on me. They finally came back 30 minutes later. Why were you so late? The roads were just a bit crowded. Did you manage to get what we asked for? Yeah, we got it. I checked a bag that Lily handed over. But Mom stopped dead in her tracks when she sighed. What is this? It's what you asked for, isn't it? Where did you go? This is completely wrong. I can understand Charles getting confused. But you were with him. Never mind, just forget it. Mom looked tired. It's not a big deal, Lily muttered under her breath, and as I looked more closely, I noticed Lily's hair was messier than when she'd left. I observed her carefully. It seemed that Thomas noticed it too. Our eyes met for a moment. It felt like he wanted to say something to me. I don't even know what's going on anymore, I thought. The atmosphere was horrible, even though this was supposed to be a time for family. How did things get like this? And so, Thanksgiving passed in this strange, uncomfortable mood. When I got home, it felt like all the pent-up exhaustion hit me at once. I fell asleep on the couch, only to wake up to the sound of Charles talking on the phone. It's fine, no one will find out, I heard him say. I called out to him. Who are you talking to? Charles looked startled and turned to face me. He quickly hung up and came over. You're awake. Who was that? A coworker. You sounded awfully close for just coworkers. As I pressed him for more, I could feel his irritation building. Why are you pushing this? I'm not lying. What are you trying to say? Nothing. I was about to drop it, realizing this wasn't going anywhere, but Charles suddenly grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go. You think I'm cheating, don't you? Admit it. Charles, who usually seemed so calm, had a look in his eyes like something had taken hold of him. You're hurting me. Let go. Then stop doubting me. Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Just let go. He finally let go of my arm. When I looked at my arm, the marks were still clearly visible. From that moment on, I began to feel afraid of Charles. 2 months later, I was heading to the hospital after getting a call from Mom. Dad had fallen down the stairs at home and broken his leg. Are you okay? Yeah, I'll be fine. Mom said you slipped. I can't believe I did something so stupid. Dad was going to be in recovery for a few months, and even after he came home, he'd need help getting around. With Thomas around, I felt a bit reassured. But just my luck. He got assigned a 2-month business trip. We all gathered at my parents' house that day. I'm really sorry I have to leave at a time like this. Don't worry about it. You have your responsibilities. Focus on that. Thank you. But I don't know what we'll do. My back's been acting up again. Before I could finish, Charles cut me off and offered to help. I'll take care of Christopher. Are you sure? You've got your hands full with work, right? I won't be able to come every day, but I can come on weekends. But you're newlyweds. Are you sure? Layla, you're okay with it, right? It would be better to have a man around. Let's just do it that way. But, do you not care what happens to Dad? That's not what I'm saying. Realizing that we weren't getting anywhere, I gave in to Charles' suggestion. Little did I know, this was the start of something far worse. From then on, every Saturday, Charles would head to my parents' house. Around the same time, I started noticing a sweet scent on him. I didn't let it slip by. Isn't that a sweet smell? Is it? Like perfume or something? Perfume. I noticed a discomfort flash across Charles' face. I felt certain something was going on. I pressed him further. I feel like I've smelled it somewhere before. Where could it be? I asked, feigning curiosity. You're imagining things. Are you sure you don't know? You're being annoying. I don't know anything about women's perfume. I didn't miss what he said next. I never said anything about women's perfume. How did you know that? Sweet-smelling stuff is usually women's perfume. A poor excuse. Tell me the truth. In that moment, something flew right past my face. I turned around in fear. There on the floor was a shattered mug. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It just slipped. I sank to the floor. The mug hadn't hit me, but the thought of what could have happened made my hands shake. I really didn't mean it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. It was just instinct. I didn't know how to respond. The fear I had felt before came rushing back. From that moment, I felt as though my life was in danger, and I found myself unable to confront Charles anymore. But that fear started to fade after one particular phone call. Dad's condition had improved, and although he still moved awkwardly, he was able to walk without crutches. It was during a call to check on him. "How are you feeling?" "Much better, thanks." "That's good. How's Charles doing?" "He's been a huge help, always looking out for me." I felt a small sense of relief hearing that. "Oh, by the way, Thomas was asking for your number. Is it okay if I give it to him?" "Sure, but why does he need it?" Thomas and I had never exchanged contact information. We just never had the chance. Thomas messaged me that night. "Sorry to bother you." "It's fine. Are you coming back soon?" "Yay, in about 2 weeks." "That's good. By the way, I wanted to explain why I asked for your number." Thomas began telling me his reason. "What do you mean by that?" "I've had my suspicions for a while, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. Honestly, I've had the same feeling." "So you've noticed too, Layla?" "Yes, sorry. I just didn't know what to do." "That's exactly it. I'll keep an eye on things, too. I should be the one doing that, but being away makes it hard. If I find anything, I'll let you know right away." "Thanks, I appreciate it." I felt a little more at ease, knowing Thomas shared my concerns. But it wasn't enough to just sit around. I decided to have Charles' actions looked into. I hired someone, and all that was left was to wait for the results. It wasn't just for me. I wanted to have answers before Thomas came back. "What? What do you mean?" "After a week of surveillance, the results came in, and there was nothing suspicious. During the weekdays, Charles went to work as usual and came home at the same time. On weekends, he left for my parents' house in the morning to help my dad and returned home in the evening." I relayed the findings to Thomas. "So that's how it was? Was it just a misunderstanding?" "Maybe, but I still feel like something's off." "I know what you mean. It just doesn't sit right." "I can understand that. It's like, after all that effort, it feels like things are unresolved. Maybe it's because we were suspicious from the start. We decided to just be relieved that nothing had happened and return to our normal lives." There was 1 week left before Thomas would come back. 2 days later, Dad had recovered enough to take care of himself, so Charles no longer needed to help. "Thanks for all your hard work." "Yay, thanks. You seem a little down." "Not really." His words didn't match his expression. A week passed without any particular changes. Then, on Saturday afternoon, I got a call from my parents. "Sorry to bother you, but could you come over now?" "Sure, but why?" "There's something we need help with." "All right," I immediately told Charles. "My parents asked me to come over, so I'm heading there." "Oh, really?" "Yay, that's the plan." "All right, take your time." "Yay." For some reason, I thought I saw a slight smirk on his face. There was a snowstorm in the forecast for that day. Did they really have to ask me to come over today of all days? When I arrived, my parents greeted me at the door. "It's freezing." "So what do you need help with?" "Well, first, have a seat." We ended up talking about random things for a while. "By the way, where's Lily?" "Lily went out before you arrived. She's meeting a friend or something." "What? On a day like this?" "Anyway, what did you need help with?" What was it, Ashley? I can't seem to remember." "What is this?" "If there's nothing important, I'm going to leave." "Come on, you just got here. Stay a little longer." My parents seemed oddly desperate to keep me from leaving. More time passed, And before I knew it, it was after 5 o'clock. It's really coming down out there. You might not be able to get back. Maybe you should call Charles. What? Just to let him know, in case the weather gets worse. All right, I'll call him. Following Dad's suggestion, I called Charles. Charles quickly said, "Well, I guess that can't be helped," and hung up. But I felt an unsettling sense of unease. When I called him just now, I thought I heard another sound in the background. Once the thought crossed my mind, I couldn't shake it. "I'm sorry, but I'm going home after all." "Oh, okay. Well, be careful out there." "Thanks." By the time I left, about 2 inches of snow had already piled up. Shivering from the cold, I hurried home. I'm back. The moment I opened a door, I knew something was off. I spotted a pair of women's shoes that clearly weren't mine. It didn't take long to realize he had brought a woman into our home. I heard voices coming from the bedroom upstairs, so I moved toward the door. "Hold on, this is a bit too rough. You like it this way, don't you? She never does this for you, does she? Please don't say that. Call me by my name. Just like you always do." It didn't take long to realize that Charles' partner was Lily. I felt rage bubbling inside me, and I pinched myself to keep from storming in. "Calm down, you need to stay calm." I took out my cell phone and started recording their conversation. I never imagined Lily would be the other woman. Their voices echoed through the house as they continued. "But why did you come here today?" "Because it's more exciting this way. And besides, we haven't seen each other recently." "Yeah, I guess. But we usually meet at the family house. We've been careful not to get caught until now." "She's too clueless to notice anything anyway." "Yeah, you're right. She'd never guess what we're doing." What a fool. It finally made sense why I hadn't noticed their relationship. I never thought they would meet at my parents' house. I had suspected something, but I convinced myself they wouldn't do that in front of our parents. That's why even after hiring someone to investigate, nothing suspicious turned up. Still, I continued recording, thinking I could use this as proof. I couldn't help but imagine how both sets of parents would react when they heard this. That was the only thing keeping me sane. I thought about barging in, but my feet wouldn't move. Why can't I? If I went in, I'd find them in the middle of it. Maybe I instinctively didn't want to see that. "So when are you going to give me a baby?" "No, that's too much. Thomas would find out." "Don't worry, I'll sleep with Thomas afterward, and he won't suspect a thing. He's so clueless." "You're a terrible wife." "Not as bad as you. And besides, he's not coming back until tomorrow. It's harder to meet these days, so this is fine, right?" "Okay, fine." Listening to this conversation was making my head pound, and I started feeling nauseous. I was reaching my breaking point. That's when I decided to call out to Charles. "Where are you?" The moment they realized I was there, I heard the sound of a window opening. In a panic, they were probably trying to hide on the balcony. But that was the worst possible thing they could do. They've really messed up now. I slowly entered the room and saw their clothes scattered all over the floor. They had run outside, completely naked. When I looked outside, I saw them crouched in the corner, trying to stay hidden. I immediately locked the door. Then I started thinking about what kind of punishment I could give them. Maybe I'll leave them out there for a little while. I walked back downstairs and headed to the kitchen. I calmly made myself a cup of coffee. Once it was ready, I returned to the bedroom, sipping my coffee as I glanced toward the balcony. They started knocking on the window. "Please, let us in. We're going to freeze out here." I ignored their pleas completely. That's when I had a brilliant idea. I grabbed my cell phone and made a few calls. First, I called my parents and my in-laws. I told them it was an emergency and convinced them to come over. The last person I called was Thomas. He was supposed to return today. Perfect timing. I was about to call you. Oh, really? Are you home right now? Yes, but you wouldn't be calling me unless something was up, right? Yes, actually. I didn't want to spoil the surprise by telling him everything. You're at your place, right? Yes, come over. I'm nearby, so I'll be there soon. See you in a bit. Now all the key players were on their way. The only thing that concerned me was Thomas's reaction. He seemed almost too understanding, like he already knew what was going on. But I didn't have time to dwell on that. I waited for everyone to arrive. When our parents showed up, I had them wait in the living room. About 10 minutes later, Thomas arrived. Sorry for being late. The roads were awful because of the snow. It's all right. Please, come in. Now everyone was gathered in the living room. So what's going on? You said it was urgent, so we rushed here through the snow. You're going to explain what this is about, right? It's about the two people who aren't here. I get that Lily isn't here, but where's Charles? That's right. Follow me, and you'll see. I led everyone upstairs to the bedroom. What is this? Look over there. I pointed toward the balcony, where the two of them stood, completely naked, staring back at us. What on earth is going on? Realizing it was dangerous to leave them out there any longer, I unlocked the door. I thought I was going to die. Please, give us something warm. I tossed them blankets. You're going to explain yourselves, right, Dad? His face red with anger. Looked like he was about to punch someone. They've been having an affair, I said. Lily looked up in shock when she saw Thomas. What are you doing here? What do you mean? I came back from my business trip today. That's impossible. You told me you'd be back tomorrow. I knew he was coming back today. After all, here he was. I felt a wave of confusion. Then Thomas started explaining the truth. I saw this coming, so I made a plan. Lying to you was part of it. Thomas turned to me. Sorry, Layla. I used you too. Thomas said he had even asked my parents for help. That's why they had suddenly called me to the house. It was Thomas who had instructed Dad to keep me there. So you knew about their relationship. No, it was just a suspicion. Even when Layla told me, I couldn't fully believe it. I'm sorry. I never thought they'd be doing this at our parents' house. Looking back, it made sense Charles had been quick to volunteer to help when Dad needed care. Now that we've cleared that up, let's figure out what to do with these two idiots who walked right into our trap. The two of them kept their heads down, saying nothing. So I decided to play the recording for everyone. If you don't want to talk, I'll help you out. What are you going to do? This. I pressed play, and their voices filled the bedroom, loud and clear. It was obvious what they had been doing. Stop it. You're not in a position to ask for anything. Listen until the end. The disgust in the room was palpable. You've disgraced our family. You're nothing to us now, Dad said, his voice cold. All the love I had for you was clearly a mistake, said Mom. Don't ever show your face again. Did you hear that? I added. Charles looked like he was about to cry, desperately apologizing to me, to my parents, and to his own. I can't believe this. I knew you still had feelings for Charles, but I never imagined this. I truly loved you, Thomas said. I loved you too. Who said you could speak? There was pure hatred in Thomas's eyes. It was so terrifying that I felt like I was about to cry. So what should we do with you two? What do you think? Thomas asked me. Well, divorce is a given. And compensation in the divorce settlement. Or maybe we should just throw them back outside. Hearing this, the two of them made one last desperate attempt. This all happened because you were always busy with work and never paid attention to me. That's no excuse for cheating. If you're going to argue, at least be logical about it. Otherwise, you're just exposing how stupid you are. Oh wait, that's already obvious. Lily couldn't muster a response. Anything else to add, monkey? Thomas sneered. I only did it because Lily came on to me. Are you seriously trying to pin this on me? You were enjoying yourself just as much. You're the one who suggested the hotel that time, remember? That time, when we went shopping together. Oh, I remembered what happened on Thanksgiving. That's probably where it all started. One last thing, why did you go after Charles? Because seeing you so happy pissed me off. You've always been bad with men. So you were upset because I ended up with the guy you liked, right? Yes. How pathetic. This guy isn't even worth it. You need a reality check. I couldn't help but laugh. I'm done. If we keep dealing with people like you, we'll end up as foolish as you. Let's go, everyone. Wait, please. Don't talk to me so casually. We slowly closed the bedroom door behind us. The snow outside was falling even harder now. We couldn't stay here any longer, so we headed to the nearest house, my parents' place. On the way, I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen to the two of them now that their families had disowned them. My in-laws also stayed at my parents' house that night, and they left the next day. Before they left, they apologized again and declared that from now on, Charles was no longer part of their family. Shall we head out? Yes. Together, we went to consult about the divorce and the compensation claims from the divorce settlement. Since we had the recording as evidence, the process wasn't difficult. The divorce went through quickly, and we successfully claimed compensation. Today was the day Thomas was moving out of the house. Thank you for everything. You're practically like a son to us. We'll miss you. Yay. It's a bit sad. You know, it's a shame you and Layla didn't get married. Come on, stop it. We were sharing a light moment when suddenly the two of them showed up, Charles and Lily. To top it off, Charles had shaved his head for some reason. If this was his idea of repentance, it was so ridiculous that I almost laughed out loud. What do you want? They both deeply apologized. Our parents have disowned us. We have no one left but you. Layla, please, we're begging you. I thought I told you never to show your face again. Dad's right. Besides, we're divorced now. We're strangers to each other. So why don't you just disappear? But even then, they didn't give up. Honestly, it's a nuisance that you're still hanging around. It's embarrassing. I can't stand to watch this anymore. Thomas extended his hand toward Lily. Are you going to help me? I watched, my heart pounding, wondering what he would do. Help you? You've got the wrong idea. I was just trying to get you out of the way. Lily's stunned expression nearly made me burst into laughter. My stomach hurt from holding it in. Anyway, you'd better leave. Dad's about to lose his patience. Dad stood there with his arms crossed, looking down at them. For some reason, he even looked proud. Seeing that, the two of them hurriedly fled the scene. Finally, they're gone. Well, I should get going too. Feel free to come by any time. Since the incident, I've been living back at my parents' house. Thomas and I keep in touch, and we even go out for drinks occasionally. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm sure it'll be a fun one.
When Walter and I went to visit my in-laws, my mother-in-law, who came to pick us up at the airport, said, "You can't ride in the car, so you must walk home." She snorted and turned up her nose. It's a 3-hour journey one way, and though I'm confident in my physical strength, this treatment was too much. I almost cried, but someone reached out to help me. In the end, it was mother-in-law who regretted it. My name is Jennifer. I'm 30 years old and married. I love mountain climbing, and I met my husband Walter, who is 2 years younger, in a college mountain club. Walter is handsome and popular with women, and when he asked me out, I wondered why me. According to Walter, Jennifer moves forward silently even on the hardest routes without complaining, and I like that about her. Walter works for a well-known corporation and earns a high salary. We've been living happily together since our marriage, just like our student days, but there's one thing that bothers me. Oh, it's a call from Mom. Sorry, I'll go talk to her. During dinner, Walter said that and hurried into his room with his mobile phone. Mother-in-law calls Walter frequently, about once every 2 days. Mother-in-law seems to adore her excellent son, and Walter is sweet to mother-in-law, making me suspect he's a mama's boy. But since she raised Walter with care, I think I should value her too. However, it seems our feelings are different. It happened before our marriage, when we went to greet my in-laws. Jennifer is 2 years older than my son, almost 30, huh? Mother-in-law seemed displeased with having an older daughter-in-law and looked unhappy throughout. Father-in-law said, "It's fine, isn't it? Love conquers all. Jennifer seems reliable, and she's perfect for Walter, who has a weak side." But that seemed to displease her even more. Mother-in-law seemed unable to oppose father-in-law directly, so she decided to bully me without him noticing. Oh dear, I'm sorry, Jennifer. It seems the snacks I served you have gone bad. I'll replace them right away. When mother-in-law intentionally harassed me, she would open her eyes wide, snort, and twist her lips. I had become like a zoologist, able to distinguish her expressions. Oh, it's okay, I can eat it. I smiled and cut off the spoiled part of the dried fruit and ate it. I had learned survival skills in the mountain club. Eat what you can of the food. Father-in-law and Walter said, "Haha, that's just like Jennifer." Father-in-law added, laughing, "Honey, Mom, that's not good. Don't serve Jennifer something like that." The atmosphere remained pleasant, but... Hee hee, I was careless, I'm sorry. While laughing, I didn't miss her brief, sharp look and a click of her tongue. There were other instances, like when she said, "Look, I went to Italy last week and bought souvenirs," and pulled out a high-quality branded tie for Walter. For me, it was a flimsy t-shirt with a fake-looking logo that was obviously a knockoff brand. "Come on, try on the tie. Jennifer, you try on the shirt too." At that moment, mother-in-law's face showed that familiar expression, and I realized it was another harassment. Now? I can't wear a tie with casual clothes. I'm not up for it right now either. I forced a smile to keep the atmosphere light, but inside I was fed up. Afterward, I only used that t-shirt for things like weeding in the summer or as a joke to show my friends in photos. I really hate even looking at it. These harassments were subtle enough that only I would recognize them as such, and when I told Walter, he would just say, "Mom's a bit quirky, so forgive her." However, the malice I felt little by little gradually wore me down. The town where we live is about an hour's drive from my in-laws, and the fact that we could easily visit them if we wanted to was also a source of gloom. Then one day, "Jennifer, I'm sorry for the sudden news, but I've been transferred. It starts next month, so please prepare." Walter's sudden transfer was decided. Walter apologized, but I was secretly relieved to have an excuse to distance ourselves from my in-laws. Plus, the new location was very close to my parents' home, so it felt like moving from away to home. Got it. Leave the preparations to me. I'll ask my family for help too. I happily proceeded with the preparations. Now, I can get away from mother-in-law's petty harassment. I was anxious about our new life, but 80% of my heart was occupied by the feeling of liberation from mother-in-law. The move was completed, and I thought I could finally distance myself from mother-in-law, but... "Hello, Jennifer? Where have you been without answering the phone? You're not neglecting my son while hanging out at your parents' house again, are you? It was another call from mother-in-law. I wanted to sigh heavily but held back and replied, I'm sorry, I couldn't answer the phone earlier. I was in line at the checkout. Walter might be tired in this unfamiliar environment, so I want to support him with nutritious meals. Mother-in-law's calls started coming every 2 days. Although we saw each other less, we talked more. Most of the time, it was mother-in-law unilaterally making snide remarks. My son is sensitive, but I wonder if someone as thick-skinned as Jennifer can understand him? My son's high school girlfriend was a delicate and fragile girl, but his taste has changed quite a bit, hasn't it? And so on, saying only things that would make me uncomfortable. Does mother-in-law have no other outlet for her stress? I felt like I had become a trash can labeled stress outlet. What hurt the most were the snide comments about children. Jennifer, you're already 30, aren't you? What do you think about children? I wonder if you, being older than my son, can have a normal child? I was shocked that someone would say such a thing in this day and age, but since it was something I had been concerned about recently, tears flowed after I hung up the phone. What does mother-in-law think of me? Does she think I won't be hurt by whatever she says? After that, the calls kept coming frequently, but when I responded only with safe answers to avoid making waves, perhaps she found it boring and not worth bullying, so the number of calls gradually decreased. I was truly relieved from the bottom of my heart. Then, on New Year's Day the following year, my husband and I headed to my in-laws' house. They were going to pick us up from the airport. Hey, Walter, Jennifer. Long time no see. Father-in-law waved and greeted us. I was honestly dreading seeing mother-in-law, but father-in-law's friendliness was a relief. Happy New Year, Mom and Dad. Happy New Year to you both. Happy New Year, I'm glad you came. Happy New Year, Walter, good to see you. We exchanged New Year's greetings, but mother-in-law didn't even look at me. Perhaps she was angry about my cold response to her frequent calls. It was an awkward relationship. I was thinking about how to get through this situation. You must be tired from the journey. Shall we take a break at the airport cafe? Father-in-law cheerfully suggested, seemingly unaware of the tense atmosphere between mother-in-law and me. That's a good idea. Wasn't there a cafe on the second floor? Walter responded cheerfully, and we moved to a cafe inside the airport. Should I drive back? No, I'm still an active driver. While the men were chatting away, mother-in-law and I were silent. Excuse me, I'm going to the restroom. After ordering, I said that and got up from my seat. Oh, maybe I'll go too. Mother-in-law said, standing up to follow me. I had a bad feeling about this. Just as the entrance to the women's restroom came into view, mother-in-law, walking behind me, said, You can't ride in the car, so why don't you walk back? Not understanding what she meant, I turned to look at mother-in-law, and there was that expression again. We're going back as a family of 3. You're a stranger, aren't you? I couldn't believe my ears. Walk back? From here to my in-laws' house? How far could that be? And calling her son's wife a stranger. While I was frozen in shock, mother-in-law continued to throw words at me. I was kind enough to call you frequently, but unlike Walter, you only respond coldly. Living near your parents' house has gone to your head. I don't want to think of you as my daughter-in-law. You're a stranger, a stranger. Mother-in-law's voice was getting louder. I was shocked, but I didn't want to argue in public, so I answered in a small voice. Yes. I understand. I didn't feel like going back to where Walter and father-in-law were, so I headed for the airport exit, plodding along. Even though she told me to walk back, this was an airport. There must be taxis and buses. I could go as far as I could and walk from there. But more than that, what face should I make when I safely arrive at my in-laws' house by walking? How should I spend the few days of my stay? That weighed more heavily on my mind. For now, I searched on my mobile phone for transportation to my in-laws' house. There was a bus leaving in just 10 minutes. But that bus wouldn't go near my in-laws' house, so from there, it seemed I would have to walk. It might take about 3 hours in total. 3 hours. I can walk that. With my legs trained in mountain climbing, it's not impossible. But there's a difference between walking for mountain climbing and walking because I'm not allowed in the car due to harassment. Tears welled up in my eyes. Was it my fault? If I had been pleasant on the phone even after being told such things, would this have happened? As I was walking along, lost in thought, I was suddenly tapped on the shoulder from behind. "Jennifer, why are you walking here?" The voice was father-in-law's. "Didn't my wife say something to you at the entrance to the restroom?" "I was going to the restroom too, and I saw you and my wife talking, and then you started to go somewhere, so I followed you." Looking at father-in-law's kind face, the tears that had been welling up in my eyes overflowed and ran down my cheeks.
Jennifer, what on earth happened?
I decided to tell father-in-law the truth. Actually, I told father-in-law exactly what mother-in-law had said, and he became angrier than I had ever seen him.
"How dare she say that to my son's wife?"
Then he said something I never expected. "I'll walk with you, Jennifer." With that, father-in-law stood in front of me and started walking.
"Father-in-law."
"Don't worry, I enjoy mountain climbing, and I used to climb a lot with Walter when he was little. A 3-hour one-way walk is nothing." Indeed, father-in-law's stride was firm, not what you'd expect from a 62-year-old.
"Come on, let's go." We didn't tell Walter we were leaving, is that okay?"
I finally remembered that. In my shock at mother-in-law's words, I had just left. "Walter will be fine, she'll probably talk him into waiting. I'll contact him." With that, father-in-law took out his mobile phone. It seemed he was texting mother-in-law. He told her he was walking back with me and that the car keys were in his bag. As we waited for the bus, father-in-law's mobile phone rang. Father-in-law answered, his voice filled with restrained anger. It must have been mother-in-law on the other end.
"I heard what you said to Jennifer. If you're going to say that, I won't ride in the car either."
I could hear mother-in-law's panicked voice shouting from the other end.
"That's not it. She said she wanted to walk for exercise."
How brazen. I was more dumbfounded than angry.
"We'll talk when we get home."
Father-in-law hung up and shoved his mobile phone into his pocket. Perhaps because father-in-law's mobile phone was unreachable, mine started ringing next. It's definitely mother-in-law. Father-in-law and I looked at each other. What does she want now, to tell us to ride in the car? I'm definitely not answering. I decided to ignore it too. Father-in-law and I silently boarded the bus and continued to walk after getting off.
"This way is a shortcut."
"There's a slope here for a while, but let's do our best." With father-in-law occasionally giving advice, it felt like we were mountain climbing together. However, I hadn't planned on walking so much today and was wearing regular boots. Father-in-law was wearing leather shoes. This will surely hurt our feet. During the journey, I hardly spoke, but I did ask once. "Father-in-law, are your feet okay? Won't walking for a long time in those shoes hurt your feet?" Father-in-law glanced at my feet and squinted. I guess we're in the same boat.
"Making a woman walk such a long distance in those shoes, I can't believe her."
Father-in-law sighed. We both thought of calling a taxi, but neither of us mentioned it, intending to spite mother-in-law. But Jennifer, you're strong. Walking such a long distance without complaining. Walter must have been attracted to that quality in you. Hearing that, I felt a little happy. Afterward, we continued to walk, buying drinks from vending machines and a grocery store to stay hydrated. About 3 hours later, as the sun began to set, we finally arrived at my in-laws' house. Their car was parked in front of the house. Mother-in-law and Walter must be home. We're back. As father-in-law opened the front door, Walter rushed over.
Dad, Jennifer. I was worried. What happened? Why did you suddenly decide to walk back for exercise?
Did you hear that from Mom? That's not it. Mom told Jennifer to walk back. Father-in-law said, looking understandably tired, as he sat down on a chair near the entrance. Mother-in-law, who had come out of the living room, was pale and gaping.
No, that's not it. That's not it. It seems there was a misunderstanding. What was the misunderstanding?
I couldn't keep quiet any longer.
You said, since you can't ride in the car, why don't you walk back, didn't you?
This was the plain truth. I hate lying.
Thanks to that, I was reminded of my mountain climbing club days. A 3-hour one-way walk was good exercise.
Walter looked back at mother-in-law. He knows well that I'm not the type to lie. The eyes of father-in-law, Walter, and I were all on mother-in-law.
What? You believe this woman over me? We 3 are family. This woman is a stranger, right? You believe a stranger over your family?
Mother-in-law screamed.
So I was not allowed in the car because I'm a stranger.
I said quietly.
Mom, I can't believe you would say something like that. Jennifer is an important part of my family. I wanted you to feel the same way.
Walter said, clenching his fist. His hand was trembling with anger.
If you're going to treat Jennifer like this, I'm done with you, Mom. I won't answer your calls anymore. Don't contact Jennifer either.
Walter took my hand and said, let's go.
Walter, wait.
Walter slammed the door and, without looking back, took my hand and started walking. A year later.
Hey, Jennifer, Walter. Over here, you can see the view really well.
Walter, father-in-law, and I were mountain climbing together. Walter received a transfer order 6 months later, and we moved back to our previous home. After the incident at the New Year's celebration, father-in-law decided to divorce and moved alone near our house. Climbing together on weekends had become a regular thing. Shall we have lunch here? At the summit, we eagerly began preparing our meal. While working, father-in-law started talking. Mom went on a spending spree after the divorce, even though the property division was done properly. It seems she's already in financial trouble. She might have been lonely. The divorce was tough, with all the crying and screaming. Putting some distance between us now is probably best for both of us. That's how it felt. She should expand her world too. Otherwise, she's the type to take out her stress on those close to her. I listened silently to their conversation. I'll cherish my own world, so I don't have to take out my stress on others. Looking at the view from the mountain with my precious family, I made that resolution in my heart.